Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review and approve minutes.
No minutes.
And we don't have any. Second item is to sign bills.
2 bills to sign from Community Advocate this evening.
Okay. First item on the agenda is an RDA at 160 Holden Street.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations that 160 Holden Street LLC, GFI Partners LLC, 133 Pearl Street, Suite 300, Boston, Mass., has filed a request for determination of applicability for the installation of a sewer line and associated erosion and sedimentation controls at 160 Holden Street and in the Holden Street right-of-way.
The applicant for this project has requested a continuance to our July 15 meeting.
Okay, so this will be continued to July 17th, correct?
July 15.
July 15th. Okay, July 15th. All right, we have a new public hearing.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of the General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations, that Sammy Ventraglia, 119 Macbeth Street, Springfield, Massachusetts, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the removal of 32 trees at 255 Gulf Street.
Is there somebody here?
You can come on up.
Come on up.
Either the podium or the whatever floats your boat.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, your name?
Sammy Ventrilia,
And what would you like to do here, Sammy?
proposing building a new home.
And
Under this application.
Oh, sorry. Under this application, looking to remove trees before we're starting site work for what will be a new home. So for this project, tree removal only.
so can you explain, you say you have 32 trees to be removed, and why do you need to remove 32 trees?
So the total 32, 17 of which, by the way, are in the 100-foot wetland buffer. The rest are outside of that. The bulk of the trees present a danger to the property, both when a new home is built, as well as the existing neighboring property right now. Also, many of the trees are exactly right where the site of the home will be, as well as the driveway.
Okay, just looking at the plan, and I can understand where your house is going to go and
Yep.
around in that area, but then if you go down to the lower end of the property, you have like a dark line delineated. So the trees below that, why do you need to take those trees down along the property line and back towards the wetland?
So if you go to some of the pictures that I shared, you can see that the trees are fully grown, very tall, quite old. Actually, in one of the picture, you can see that they have been blown over by a storm. So I had an arborist come out and actually take a look at the trees and validate. Once we actually clear some of the land for the future home, they do present a danger of winds coming through and actually potentially causing harm to one of the 2 properties.
But those trees down, there's nothing there. It's just wooded area. And your house is going to be, I don't know.
If it falls towards either property, it has potential to hit either home. And actually, in one of the pictures where there's a tree already down, you can see that actually fell exactly right where the house would be.
I don't see how that could be. I mean, they're more than 50 feet away from the house.
These are quite tall trees.
Okay, Emily?
I guess I have some of the same concerns as Ken. I mean, are they, I guess my question is, are they damaged? Are they rotting? Are they, at risk of falling over?
Yeah, no, fair question. There are a couple of trees, as mentioned in the arborist letter, that are split down the middle already. As well as if we remove, let's say there's a grouping of 3 pines directly in between where our house will be and the existing neighbor's home now. If we remove one of them, that potentially causes a risk for the other 2 because they're growing together. So again, detailed in the arborist letter, but yes, that's absolutely something we looked at. My goal is to, by the way, preserve the property as much as possible. We do want as much wooded area as possible. So this was really just only the trees that are a necessity to move down, especially while the land is clear. Better to get a truck in now while it's easier and less damaged everyone's property.
And I guess, would you be amenable to cutting them to a height that is maybe not fully removing them, but a height that wouldn't, I guess, damage anything if it were to fall? So like 8 feet or 6 feet.
Yeah.
That might be something for the commission to consider. I guess those are my comments on this. And then obviously, out of 32, only 17 are in the buffer zone. So the other ones, aren't really the subject of our approval.
Right.
Okay. And you're done?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I just want to keep following on the same vein.
Sure.
So the trees that are the closest to that narrow end of the property,
Right.
right
down to
near
point.
the wetlands.
Yep.
So there's a line in a photograph that I was just looking at that says 142 point something feet from that property line to your neighbor off to the left. I'm not sure, is that east or west? I don't know which direction that is. And so I'm not sure what they would fall on if they were to fall on something.
So if you actually
Like
go-
those, especially those 3 X's towards the bottom of the picture.
These 3?
Yep, yep.
There's a very good chance we actually end up leaving those. I would almost prefer to not have to worry about getting equipment back there. But if you go to one of the pictures, you can see there's a little children's playground for their kids. You can see in one of the pictures, yeah, this here, and the trees that you're pointing to are these back here.
I see the playground on here.
Okay, so the land really moves at an odd angle.
It does. So if you saw the property lines for the neighboring property, where ours comes to a point at the end, theirs just continues straight out.
Yeah.
So their property line is, probably another 20 or 30 feet that way.
Yeah, and it goes straight to the
And
wetlands.
it goes straight across.
Okay. All right. So I still don't know, from looking at this, if those trees could actually even reach this area. I just would like to know more, that's all. I just want to know more. I have a couple of other questions. If you're taking down those 17 trees that are within the 100-foot zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be allowing regrowth of trees, or would you want to put in shorter native trees? Because I have to say, the native vegetation in there is really gorgeous. You have phenomenal, healthy undergrowth there. And when the tall trees are taken out, it's gonna be rough on them, because a number of things will happen. They'll be exposed to more sunlight, and also the soil will dry out more. because there won't be the trees. Trees make things damp, which is really great for everybody that lives underneath the trees. You take away the trees, it dries out. So, a number of the plants, they're gonna have a really rough time.
Paper plan.
And so my question is, will you allow regrowth in there? In 100 years, you can have trees that are this big. Or would you consider putting in shorter native trees that allow for shade and are good for local pollinators?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Yeah, like I said, the property itself, we're trying to minimize impact as much as possible, because we bought the property because of its privacy and seeing the wooded area behind it, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely open to that.
it'll be a very calm place to live,
I agree,
yeah.
look forward to it,
And that huge pile of boulders is fascinating.
I agree.
I would climb all over that if I were a kid.
Yeah.
I'd spend my life climbing up and down that. The other thing is that if you were to cut these trees at a higher amount, actually the preferred height is like 8 to 15 feet for a stump.
Okay,
Because it provides habitat,
right,
yeah. So I'm just gonna add that in right there.
absolutely. There's already one tree back there that fell down some years ago, and it actually is already at that height, and there are birds nesting up on top of it, so
Right,
happy to,
pines tend to snap up high.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, happy to do that.
thank you, that's wonderful.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of jump on everyone else. I agree with all the trees shouldn't come down. And I agree if you're gonna take them down, keep it like at least 10 or 10 feet high on everything you've cut down, just for that reason.
Yep,
Would like to also see some trees be planted back into that
Yeah.
area to keep the soil more moist and just be nice down here, so you don't have nothing. It's not
Right.
vast wind blowing through. It's potentially gonna hurt your neighbors also.
can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
Would you suggest planting within the wetland buffer or elsewhere on the property?
Just outside the wetland. I don't want you in the wetlands. You can be
Well,
outside that
You
area.
mean within the
With-
100-foot buffer?
Within the buffer or outside of it?
Within, I would
Yeah, you
say
can plant
within.
within it,
Within.
because that's where that understory is gonna be so exposed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's what you're
Yeah.
looking for, sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
All I had.
Chris?
I mean, I don't see the trees at the far, I can try to get the direction here, I guess it's, the skinniest part of the property. I don't see why those are impacting anything, really. I don't see why you need to take those down. But I'm amenable to, to leaving stumps if that's what you have to do.
Actually, I think that
So-
all of us have said the same thing.
yeah,
So you'll have to come back to us for an order of conditions to construct your home, correct?
I will have to come back for that, yes.
So why do you want to take these down, all these trees down now at this time, before you have an order of conditions?
I would like to clear the lot and have it ready and be able to walk the property. So just looking to make some progress, as I don't have a builder to contract yet, but I am looking to make some progress. I've owned the property since 2021, so looking to just get the ball rolling on it.
So, with you having to come back to us, what I think maybe we can discuss would be to leave all the trees in that area below where that line is on the plan, and the trees up within your building envelope and above, you can probably be able to take down. And when you come back to us for your order of conditions, if you have a report on all these trees, on every single one of those other trees that you want to take down, saying that they're not viable, they're not healthy, or there's an issue with them, we could discuss it then at your, at that time.
Okay, beyond the arborist letter that I provided?
Correct, for each one of the trees and we'll single them out, because you have a grouping of trees, and
Yep.
but every tree hasn't been assessed, so we can put it on a plan, and we like a certain amount of all these trees assessed, and if they're not healthy and they need to come down, well, then so be it.
Okay,
Would that be acceptable? As a condition?
I would have to call the arborist back to provide that.
Well, you can
Yeah.
come back to us when you're going to,
The order.
you can include that in your order of conditions. So we'll give you an RDA just to cut the trees down within your envelope with conditions. And then on the other trees, do an assessment from the arborist, come back and give us a report when you're going to come with your order of condition, and then we'll look at it then.
Aaliyah, do you have a copy of the arborist report?
It's in the file, and it's,
They just say all the trees.
right.
Oh,
So I want these
Let me pull
specific
up the letter.
trees discussed.
I would agree with that.
This was-
Yeah, just an
Here's-
assessment of
So
the.
this is kind of what, I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
They're marked. So, I was able to go to your property. That's how
great.
I know that I would climb all over those rocks. And if I had a kid, they'd be climbing all over them.
Save these.
And the trees are marked, so I could
Some
look
of
at them.
most of them are, yeah.
A lot of them are, yeah.
Yeah.
And I could look at them and I can say, oh, I can actually see why this tree, you know, it could split or whatever.
Right.
That's what we're talking about, the keeping those right there for the
Okay.
time being.
Okay, so like approval to remove maybe these,
And
and then
here,
all these ones up
Right.
here.
Right,
up to the
Okay,
road.
I think that.
We'll show you this to you, Sam, so you will know.
Right here?
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you wanna
Sure.
take a look at
That's what I was
this?
gonna.
I went from like this.
It's basically
I'll give that-
everything,
You'll have it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
You want like
yeah.
Thank you.
So these would, you would have approval to remove, and then when you come back for your NOI for
Yeah, I was
the
measuring it. It's
building of your house
5
lot.
Here.
This is what.
Where is the house? So there's one here. Where's the,
That's
is there
just
another?
Oh, I was talking about the neighbor's house, which is roughly probably about here.
Leave those.
like
In
right
that
there.
swing set that
I
you saw the
think
picture
these
of,
were the
that's
ones that were
actually
concerning to
probably
his neighbor.
Yeah.
And their property
let 'em
line
do
is
an
just straight
assessment.
up that way.
Let me,
You know what I'm saying?
You know
Lee,
what,
is
get that on
Yeah.
the map.
I want an assessment.
Yeah, it's
I'm
just
not
'cause
saying
it's-
no,
it's-
just not
it's-
right this minute.
Unclear
Yeah.
looking at that map,
Yeah.
what's in relationship.
All right, we good with that, Sammy?
I'm good with that.
so
Alright, so-
can I get a count of the trees that have been approved to be removed?
Oh, the approved to be removed, so it'd be the opposite of 23, right?
So it would be,
Nothing's back here, nothing's on that
No.
side.
Show this tab instead.
There's nothing.
So from
save 11.
here to over there is 142 feet.
So,
Okay, because you can,
trees,
Pretty much
removed.
cut it off right about here.
here is, I'll just on this line.
So they'll probably not be.
13, did I miss one? 14?
Uh-oh, that's my
Oh,
lot line.
oh, but I guess we didn't count those before.
Yeah, it would be 21 that would be removed, is what I counted.
You count, see if you get the same number I got.
Does that include ones that are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone?
Yes.
Okay, so I already took, I
Yeah.
took 15 off the top.
Oh,
They're not
okay.
subject to our jurisdiction.
Well,
Okay, well, you'll have this, and
Yeah.
then, so basically, the ones that are in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Six.
7. 6?
Seven?
6 that you can take down
Yes?
yes.
in the jurisdictional area. And the
Okay.
rest, okay.
Okay. We want to vote on this now, or?
3, 4, 5, okay. Those are close, yeah, okay, so those will impact the proposed house.
Right, that's why they can take them down now.
Okay.
All right, would somebody, like to issue a negative determination on
I can-
this with conditions?
I can
Do
try.
we want to put any erosion control up?
I wouldn't say erosion, I did have a question about, before a determination is issued, I had a question about the methodology for removing the trees, because I know you mentioned a truck.
Mhm.
And with the very nice understory that exists there, I would have concerns about whipping out the biggest, big trucks available to take those trees down, just because they would maul the understory that's existing there. And any baby white pines that are growing there are going to get smushed. So I didn't know if you had or if the arborist had discussed, or your proposed tree company had discussed how they would be removing those trees?
No.
Okay.
Can I add one other thought here? If you were to top a tree so that it's, topping it at 8 to 15 feet, somewhere in there, that range, let's say that that's right here. This part is down on the ground. What some people will do is actually leave that tree there. Not because it's gorgeous. It actually, at first, it looks pretty scrappy. It's because it protects the area. And it provides food for new trees that will grow right out of it.
Yeah.
And so that's one technique that is done.
I'm open to that.
All right, so for this determination, we're going to allow him to cut those trees within that, outside of that
Outside of the
envelope,
area we
okay,
marked.
for his home.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay, so would somebody like to issue a?
Do we need to condition it upon the way they're removed? The ones even within the building envelope? The parameter of the building envelope?
It doesn't go back as far as I had anticipated, so
Okay.
at this point in time, it could be done with the biggest machines
Okay.
available, but I would still, you could have a condition to, where possible, to use smaller things.
I can certainly request that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a negative determination with respect to the trees outside of the marked area on the map.
And where necessary, use smaller means of tree removal as possible.
Second.
All in favor for a negative determination?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we have a plan that'll be mocked up. Alea will provide it to you. Just stay outside of the areas that we marked, and once she gives you your notice, you'll be all set to go.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Another new hearing?
New public hearing, new RDA.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations that Vincent Ty, on behalf of the Town of Shrewsbury Engineering Department, 100 Maple Avenue, Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, has filed a request for determination of applicability for the temporary crossing of a wetland, removal of vegetation, and maintenance of stormwater detention basin at 4, 6, and 8 Grist Mill Circle.
sorry, I mislocated my plan sets.
That's right.
There it is.
You all set, Vincent?
Yes.
You state your name.
Hello, my name is Vincent Ty. I'm the Stormwater Coordinator for Shrewsbury DPW Engineering Division. I'm here today because I'm filing an RDA for the maintenance of a town-owned detention basin where access through the drainage easement unfortunately crosses a channelized stream. For background, the town initiated a rehabilitation and maintenance program in 2022 to bring about 120 of our stormwater basins to maintainable condition and regularly maintain them. So far, we've brought to original condition about 30 to 40 of our stormwater basins, starting with the ones on town property, and some of the ones that were not functioning well at all. We're starting to get to more basins on the edge of the Blackstone watershed, and some that require a little bit more effort due to the difficulty of either accessing or maintaining them. The Grist Mill Detention Basin is one of those basins on the list to be maintained this year. The easement, even though the basin is on Grist Mill, the easement actually provides access through Boylston Street, which unfortunately crosses a channelized stream. For that crossing, we propose a temporary access bridge, temporary construction entrance, and erosion control barrier. In addition, understanding that future maintenance of the property may negatively impact the stream, I've also added to our SOP language to convey to our staff that the treading and parking of vehicles and heavy equipment is not allowed through the stream, and that any equipment should be brought in by hand. Heavy equipment will include ride-on lawnmowers. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer to the best of my ability.
Emily?
So I guess the first question I have is regarding the crossing. So is it an intermittent stream that we're crossing or a perennial stream?
It appears to be intermittent. Earlier in the spring, very early May, that the entire area is actually quite dry. But then after a rain event, there was water going through.
Did you look at the stream stats at all for the stream itself to give you any information about whether it might be intermittent or perennial?
I have not.
And then I guess the crossing, if the goal is to ultimately maintain the basins in perpetuity, is a temporary crossing appropriate? You know, if we're gonna be maintaining it I just think that the idea that it's only temporary in nature, and what's the crossing consist of?
So crossing would be made of with railroad ties connected together. The reason why we need the temporary access bridge is so that we can kind of cut the trees and remove sediment from the detention basin, which will require heavy equipment to go through and cross the stream.
And how are you scooping out the sediment?
There'll be an excavator and a dump truck usually.
Okay, so more than just a ride-on lawnmower?
For future maintenance, the temporary access bridge will not be there. And when we go to mow the detention basin, then that SOP where vehicles and heavy equipment will not be crossing the stream.
So every time you need to maintain this basin, do you need to a temporary crossing?
No.
No.
This is just for the 1 year to get this fixed up so that we can regularly maintain it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Diane?
Sure. So the riprap that is part of the temporary crossing will the riprap be taken up or will it be left down?
It'll be taken out.
Okay, so the riprap is put down temporarily and then picked up and taken away. That's cool. Is it by stone, or is the riprap in bags or something? How do you do that?
There'll be a dump truck that will be going in, laying down the riprap.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then would you revegetate it
Yes.
after?
The current plan right now is to put plantable loam burrow and revegetate the area with grass. However, any of that can be changed right now. The project has not gone out to bid yet, so I am free to change anything right now.
Okay. All right, so then here's my next question. It's about the railroad ties.
Yes.
Those are gonna go across from like one bank to the other bank, right?
Yes.
And they're big and strong. They can carry trains. So will those be in contact with water?
We've GPSed the locations of the stream at full bank width,
Yep.
and then the bridge will actually be we'll be crossing beyond the full bank width. So the width of the stream is about 10 to 15 feet, depending on where you're standing, and then the bridge itself will be at 24 feet, sitting on top of the stream.
Okay, so it's not likely that those railroad ties are gonna touch the water?
They will not,
Okay, because my
unless
next
we have a
question was,
significant rain event.
are those railroad ties pre-treated with chemicals that we would want to keep out of wetlands?
I can always double check and make
Okay.
sure that is in the specs.
Okay, thank you very much. It's good. That's all I have.
Bobby?
One quick, whereabouts on Boylston Street are you gonna access this from? Whereabouts is it, just before Boylston Circle, after Cemetery, or is it further down, or,
It is further north of the cemetery,
okay?
between 251 and 265 Boylston Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And, like I said, just gonna take the stuff back out again, that's fine. I have no other questions.
Oh, Chris?
No questions.
So Vincent, I'm taking you probably do this during dry time, probably in the summer, or you'll work with how the weather's going, or?
Ideally, we'd like to be able to do this when it is dry. These last few months have been wet. Early in the spring, it's been very dry. The contract going out for this, we've had it scheduled for 1.5 years, assuming it goes out, gets awarded July. So there'll be plenty of time hopefully for the contractor to find a dry period to be able to access this.
Okay. Aaliyah?
I did want to note that we'd kind of gone through the proposed planting mixes for all the basins in Shrewsbury, and we've identified three mixes that will be alternated between. One is a native wildflower mix, one is a wet meadow mix, and then one is a native grass mix. So if a grass mix is going in, it will not be Kentucky blue. It will be a native of the native grasses are escaping my mind right now, but it is,
Little blue stem.
yeah, a mix of native, such as little blue stem, and I truly cannot remember the names of the other grasses, but yes, they are, I'm happy to provide the mix as has been approved. And then through the course of the project, we did look to identify if there was a perennial stream identified there, and there is not.
Okay, so it's intermittent, so
Yes.
just temporary bank impacts associated with the construction of the crossing,
Yes,
which will be removed and restored upon
Yes.
completion.
yes.
Of the
And for the channel itself, I would recommend that not the grass mix go in, that a wet meadow mix go in, because obviously it should be wet at some point in the year. I think that was all the comments that I
All
had.
set? Anybody in the audience have any comments, concerns? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
Do we have any conditions, wet meadow mix, or, and,
With the
What?
appropriate seed mixes as
Okay.
discussed.
okay.
I would also recommend a condition that only, like hand carryable, like no big things going in again.
No big equipment.
Yeah, after
Going
the
after
temporary
the-
crossing has been removed.
Oh.
Any maintenance that will require something larger than something that can be carried onto the site should be re-permitted,
Yes.
either with a temporary crossing or with something that will stand the test of time if regular intensive maintenance is required in this location.
How about maintenance should include hand tools only?
Yes, that sounds,
We do have
Wait a
a
second.
remote lawnmower that's about 4 times the size of this ad pad that we can carry in and mow, so that we don't have to use a ride-on lawnmower for the steep slopes that are at the site.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a negative determination with respect to this request, with the condition that an appropriate seed mix is used and any post-construction maintenance be completed with hand tools only.
Second.
All there in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a continued public hearing regarding notice of intent filed Lake Quinsigamon Commission, P.O. Box 4476, for the implementation drawdown plan to manage invasive nuisance species at Newton Pond. Is there anybody here for this?
I think they will be joining us remotely this evening.
Perfect.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Just tell us your name.
Hi, my name is Margaret O'Brien. I'm with TRC, and I'm representing the applicant, the Lake Quinsigamon Commission, in this filing. We presented it to the commission on March 18th and have just been waiting for the Mass DEP file number, so we have received that to date. And I guess I can just I can briefly go through what we discussed on the March 18th meeting, but this is for a winter level drawdown. So Newton Pond has 3 main invasives: fanwort, Eurasian milfoil, and variable leaf milfoil. They currently are permitted to do other management activities on the lake, which include herbicide applications. But they're trying to add this winter level drawdown as just another tool in the toolbox to help them manage with the plants. And it just occurs during the winter time. The water level's drawn down, and it targets a lot of the rooted plants, which is what milfoil and fanwort are, along the shoreline. And then it will, obviously the pond will then refill up by the spring. I guess if there's any remaining questions, I think from what I remember last time in the commission, there weren't any remaining questions. We're just waiting on the file number, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And then I guess as a little update, we also filed with the town of Boylston, and that was passed last night. They had a third-party reviewer, Dave Mitchell, who had no additional comments on it. So that was just an update.
Okay, and I just one question. I believe this is for 5 years? 5 year, like a
Yeah, I would
management
recommend a
plan?
special condition.
Correct,
To
okay.
approve it for 5
Yep.
years.
Emily?
Did DEP have any comments, note, or, when they issued their file number? I guess is my question.
I think DEP's only comment to the commission when they issued their file number was recommending current plant maps with the herbicide application permit that they already have for the pond. That's already part of their conditions to do pre and post plant mapping. So that's something that's already kind of in the works for that.
That was my only question.
Diane?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Bob?
No questions, thank you.
Chris?
No questions.
Aaliyah?
I think the only thing is, it would be great to receive Boylston's order of conditions.
Yes, I was going to add, if the two commissions would be able to make a cohesive set of order of conditions, that would be preferable. So yeah, I can make sure that you guys get that order of conditions.
Yes, yeah, we can look to kind of coordinate conditions so that they're not arguing. I think that was the only comment.
That's all you have. Anybody from the audience have any questions? Okay, I guess then we can close this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Erica Lerner on behalf of Massachusetts Transportation Highway Division, 10 Park Plaza, to conduct sediment sample dredging at culvert locations along Route 20. Anybody here?
Yes, I'm here online. My name is Carly Barron.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So I work for HNTV. I'm working on behalf of Mass DOT. I'm also joined here by Kevin Thompson from Mass DOT. We were continued from last meeting just because we were still lacking DEP file number, which we do have now. I think that was the only hang up. So just a quick overview. This is just for 6 dredge sampling locations along Route 20 in support of a future Section 401 minor dredge permit for the larger project, which is corridor improvements, including culvert work. So some dredging within land underwater. The dredge sampling is investigatory only, so no dredging or construction is proposed at this stage. And the 6 dredge sampling locations are located within 2 intermittent streams and 1 perennial stream, which is Little Bummit Brook. And it's just going to result in 6.2 square feet of permanent impacts to land underwater. And all of the sampling will be conducted manually using a hand core. Areas will be accessed by foot, and the core itself holds all of the extracted material. So there should not be any sediment in the water itself. And that's it.
Okay, all right. Emily?
I have no questions.
Diane?
I don't have any questions.
No questions?
Chris?
No.
Leah?
I have no questions, and DEP similarly had no comments.
Anybody from the audience have any questions? Okay, I guess we're all set. We'll close this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, we have a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent by Is it Petrie on behalf of Pulte Homes New England LLC, 1900 West Park Drive, Suite 180 West Row, for the construction of 150 multifamily residential housing community and supporting amenities at 30, and infrastructure at 3369 Green Street.
Good evening.
Hello.
Essex Petrie with Pulte Homes in New England.
Matt Leidner with Civil Design Group. Good evening.
And last time we were here, we went through few times in detail the project. The last time we just did not have a DEP number. We have since received that. DEP did have a few notes when they filed, and we put together a response letter to those. They were really more notes than comments, but we did provide a response letter to those. And we are looking to close the hearing tonight. Looking to first need to get a certificate of compliance on the previous NOI for the 40B project, which I did file with Aaliyah, and then get the order for the new project.
Emily?
So I guess my question is to our agent, did we have, so we had Art review the wetland delineation.
Yes, so there was, prior to the filing of the orders, or the NOIs, there was an ANRAD done to set the wetlands. That was, we had third-party review, confirmed that those wetlands were all, and then we additionally hired him for the second ANRAD that was conducted to finish delineating the wetlands.
And did we have somebody peer review the stormwater or?
I don't believe we did, well, I don't, maybe did Graves engineer?
Yeah, it was peer
Okay.
reviewed as part of the planning board application process, and we've gone through that with planning board. We are going back to planning board at their next meeting to finalize the decision, but that did go through peer review through Graves.
And that went, so this is the stormwater proposal for this project is pretty similar to what was previously proposed, so that it has been peer reviewed. Yeah, it's been vetted.
Twice in theory.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have no additional comments.
Diane?
Okay, I have a really small comment.
Sure.
Question. Okay, so, I just wanted to make sure I understood the sentence here. It says, the submitted landscape plans, sheets L102 through L105, call for the perimeter slopes to be seeded with native steep slope seed mix. Great. And then it says, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding the English, okay? These slopes are not proposed to be seeded with grass requiring weekly, bi-weekly maintenance. Does that mean that these are going to be mowed or not mowed? Are they going to be mowed like once a year, or what's the plan here?
It would just be more of an as-needed, but it would not be needing a routine maintenance, though, would be the point of that. That is a little clunky, agreed.
Yeah, it's a little clunky, but that's okay. That's the world. So, and then this just next thing is just a comment. When native plants are allowed to grow, insects often lay their eggs inside the stem. And if the stem is cut down, then the next generation doesn't get to grow. So there are a couple ways of dealing with that, and one of them is cut them, leave them, don't touch them, right? In the fall, let them grow up through the season, and then in the fall, cut them down and just leave them there. Or don't cut them down, leave them through the winter, which is even better, and then in the spring, once all the vegetation has started to grow, cut them then. So, that's my one
Thank
thought
you,
there.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Chris,
I'm all set.
Leah?
I would recommend a special condition that kind of cements that all the slopes should be mowed probably at most once a year. And we could set just a recommended early spring, would be an ideal time, because it is
Yeah.
best for the critters to overwinter.
Right, and also those plants are usually beautiful.
Yep.
So it's not like they look messy. They usually look gorgeous.
Agreed.
I would also recommend that the detention basin itself be seeded with a native seed mix. That might want to be mowed more frequently, just to keep it functioning as intended, and so that it doesn't turn into some of the other basins of the town, but
And I just will point out specifically to the detention basins, the O&M plan calls for occasional mowing because you really don't want tree saplings or anything to
No.
start growing in there. But just for those, it does require the cuttings to be removed so they don't end up clogging the outlet system.
That makes sense too.
Okay.
yeah, I would just recommend a native mix be used. You could
On the
use
slopes.
you could use a native grass mix.
Yeah.
That, it would still be mowed, but it would just be slightly more friendly to the area than like a turf grass mix.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the cuttings could still be removed, but, during, when they're,
So just to clarify, right, so the slope areas outside of detention basins, the slope areas on the
Yes.
landscape plan, it calls for a native slope mix to
Yes.
be used.
yeah.
The detention basins call for a wet mix
Okay.
to be used.
Yeah.
Specifically, they're called out differently.
Okay. Yeah, and I imagine that you will use different mixes for different purposes, because obviously the slopes
Yes.
are more aggressive. I am just recommending that mix be native. So if it is a wet
Okay.
meadow mix, that it's not, I don't know, Asian wet meadow mix, vaguely.
I understand.
Yes, I
Yes,
just
I
would like
can't
to see
say
more.
with certainty whether or not the mix is
Off
for
the
the
top of my head,
basins.
I don't recall either.
But we can certainly check on that and make adjustments as needed,
Yeah.
if that ends up being.
I think
Sure.
that would be, yeah, because it would still be mowed, it would just be slightly more kind to the ecosystem. I did just want to note that the applicant was able to provide the comparison of disturbed area from the previous proposal to this proposal. This proposal does propose to disturb, slightly more area than was previously approved to be disturbed.
So procedurally, to issue this order, we have to issue the certificate first, or are we just gonna roll it?
Well, so you can close this
Close
hearing.
this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in the instance that you are closing this hearing this evening,
Mhm.
you could close this hearing and then we'll get to the certificate of compliance for that one first.
Okay.
Or we can
I will.
scooch to the certificate of compliance and then come back to the order of conditions. We'll place them.
It'll be done.
Pops up to the end of
It'll be done. We'll sign that tonight.
Yes.
So, anybody in the audience have any comments or questions? Yes, please, you need to, please come up to the microphone and just state your name, please, so we can hear you. Thank you.
Janet Schulman. I have a question, a general question. When trees, understory, middle story, and larger trees are coming down, does the commission ever consider nesting season? Like, can it be done before or after? Is that ever a consideration? Because that's a lot of habitat loss.
So in terms of that, if it is occurring outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, so the Conservation Commission only has jurisdiction over that 100 feet of upland.
So it's just the
closest to
wetland?
wetland.
Yes.
Yes. So there's that little bit of upland that is under the jurisdiction of the commission. We can recommend that nesting seasons be considered. for those areas? Is there a specific species that you have?
Just in general, habitat loss in general all over town.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, beyond that 100 feet, the commission would have no consideration over it.
Okay.
We have worked on previous projects, we have worked to kind of work around specific species needs that have been, like, specific species that have been identified within those areas, and kind of worked around when they're doing the most of their things.
Okay.
And kind of been able to shift construction timelines by a couple
Okay.
of weeks to help those critters.
Good to know.
And we will because this is a rather large project, we will be pretty frequently on the site to make sure that it's all going swimmingly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I guess we can close this hearing then. Thank you. All right, we have a new continued public hearing regarding notice of intent filed by Juan Mendez.
No, we'll do all of our motions at the end of the evening.
Yeah, at the end, we do all of them at the end.
Okay, sorry, excuse me. So that'll be the certificate and the
Yes.
order, okay.
Yes,
We will
yeah,
do
we'll
that.
do the whole.
Thank you very much.
We have a new continued public hearing regarding notice of intent filed by Juan Mendez on behalf of Alpha Capital Realty Trust, 23 Whitaker Lane, Princeton, Mass., for the construction of a roadway at 56 Oregon Ave.
Thank you. Could it be put on the screen, please, if you have it?
Oh, yes, of course.
Glenn Krawalski from EBT Environmental Consultants, thank you, representing the applicant.
Diane, I'm gonna hand this to you.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Just a moment, let me get it.
Oh, hold on, we gotta get it up, sorry.
I appreciate it.
Is a preferred page of the plan set that you'd like to see?
Excuse, yes, thank you. Sheet 4 of 6, if you could, please. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We're ready, if you're all.
Go right
For the
ahead.
chairman. So this project's been around for, I wasn't involved with it at the beginning, but I see the earlier date of 4/18, and now we're at, well, we're in 25, of course. We'll look at final approvals and going back into 19, obviously we're in 25. So I got involved with the project that had, they attempted to get an extension on it, but it was denied. This was a extension of the roadway, Oregon Ave, the very end of it. And then there's a trail running in a east direction over to Graylock Park. If I call it Westbrook, I believe, which flows out of Mill Pond up above, and across the street from Mill Pond was I'm familiar with this system. Venacasa had the houses that they built down directly across the street from Mill Pond. And then this brook, so I'll go into the brook first. The brook was channelized. We had plans from the city engineering department back when we were doing the Venacasa project that this was called stream improvement back in the mid-60s, mid to late 60s, before there was a wetland regulation. Millbrook was channelized from Mill Pond down until somewhere directly behind the old Spags, and from there, 3,000 feet, it was piped to Bucket de Pepo, Lake Quinsigue. I walked up that 3,000 feet pipe looking for sewage at one point, a few under the Venacasa, which we did find some problems. But this is the brook that we're dealing with. It's a man-altered brook system. We're adjacent to the 200-foot riverfront area, which is now channelized. It's in about a 4-foot deep channel if you've been through Graylock Park. There's a parkland walkway around this, as far as bridges, 2 bridges, and if you've been down through there. And what they did when they drained this and channelized it back in the 60s, they, in this 2-minute perk rate gravel, let's just say hydrologic soil group A, it drained the wetland directly adjacent to us. So we had originally looked at this. I took the project on just to refile it because the extension didn't go because it was an enforcement order on the project, which I wasn't aware of, but we are aware of it now. And we're going to be asking for, within the next couple of days, a request to lift the enforcement order, as there's no more sediment going to any wetlands. It's been stabilized for quite a while. I was there again yesterday. So once we lift the enforcement order, hopefully, we're asked your agent for a site inspection, if the commission does that, to look at 2 things, or your agent or your staff to look at it with us. One, that there's a possibility of lifting the enforcement order because there's no sediment going into wetlands. And 2, this is not a bordering vegetated wetland adjacent to this property. It's an isolated vegetated wetland. It's surrounded, this wetland, which has been drained, which is reverting into upland vegetation from the 60s on. Black locust, red oak, white ash, euronymous species. But we're not gonna change what the wetland line on the plan, but what we will say is it's an isolated wetland. And that's why we want a site inspection to prove it's isolated. It's surrounded by walkways, and on the southern side, there's a berm when you walk down the Graylock Park, and you're walking in the southern direction. And then as you bear west, there's a berm about 4 feet high surrounding this so-called wetland, drained wetland, which then makes this isolated, which then, under the DEP comments, they said we were within 100 feet if we were within 100 feet of bank or within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands, then a wildlife habitat evaluation would be required. Well, this is isolated vegetated wetlands. And here we have the clause specifically under 57.3, which is bordering. So there would not be a wildlife habitat evaluation because it is not a bordering vegetated wetland. And also the other comments DEP had, I talked to the existing grades, and they have done testing. They have the data. They're putting it together. We apologize it's not in front of you right now, but we want to clean up these several issues that have taken place. Enforcement order, proving it's isolated, making a case that we're not removing trees. There was 1 tree in the whole zone. This had been cut down in the past. Some of the stumps are completely rotted. They're 3 feet diameter red oak stumps, rotted into the ground, and we'll see that. So this is very long ago, most likely it appears to be before 96 of August. And now it's growing up with exotic invasive plants, Norway maple, Monroe honeysuckle, Japanese honeysuckle, Japanese bamboo, locust, black, ailanthus, euronymous, glossy buckthorn, multiflora rose. And so most of the area that we're working in, no trees, some saplings, mostly those Norway maple. And we're proposing to compensate the storage capacity, which was the original project along Oregon, at the end of Oregon, so that there's frontage for a house lot. The gentlemen are not going in front of you for the house lot at this point. It was originally upgrade the roadway, do the compensatory storage, and then file, and this is how I inherited the project, then file for the house itself. The house itself would be outside any buffer well, we won't be filing with you. It's outside any buffer and riverfront area, any proposed work. So this is only for the upgrade and the compensatory flood storage of Millbrook. We are attempting to find, because from the Vanacasa files, I told my office today to ask the commission if they have it in your files. We would like to have the original, that 86, 87 stream improvement, just to put it back in my file. However, it got lost out of the Vanacasa. It was a long time ago, but it would be interesting to show you what they called stream improvement back then.
Yeah, if you could identify, I'm not sure if
Did you ask, or did my office get that request to you today?
I don't believe
Oh.
so. If they did, it
Well,
was
we
later.
told him, and it's my son, so
Okay.
it'll be out tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, if you have a specific file number that it would be
Yeah,
associated with, it would be
well,
easiest to locate it.
it's the whole piping, that 3,000 feet from again, all the way to Belka, the Peppo, or the Quincy. But it was just to make the point, if we have the site inspection, we can go and see what man did at the time when it was, before the regulation, before, wetland regulation at least, not after the Hatch Act, but of course, the Hatch Act, all you had to do was ask to do it, and once it was asked for, because we just went through one in Worcester, and then it was given, so it wasn't a tough lift under Hatch Act, 64 and on. So we are gonna be asking for a continuance to your next meeting, and hopefully somebody from the town, or the commission if you choose, someone from the commission can come out and walk this, both for the enforcement order and for the isolated wetland confirmation. Or, of course, you hire a peer reviewer to go walk it too, but it's a simple walk. We walk down, it's quite obvious, with a 15-minute walk that it's an isolated, and there's no pooling area in it. It's this hydrologic soil group A, the thing is well drained because of what man did when they channelized this brook. It's well below the elevation of that adjacent wetland, which would be on its west side. I don't believe I have response letter to DEP. We'll have a complete response letter to DEP, as everyone does. Apologize for that. And again, that one tree, that black oak, it's right on our erosion control barrier. If we have an inspection, we will leave that one tree that's involved with this whole project. The rest of the saplings, and that is the size of it. I appreciate your time. I'm here to answer any questions you have, of course.
So, Leah, can you just, the enforcement order and whatnot?
So the enforcement order for this project was issued several years ago because there are, in the, kind of with the original or with the previous filing for this project, they had cleared the lot in preparation of installing the roadway and eventually a single-family home or a whatever family home. And there has been, it's kind of been used as kind of a stockpile area in recent years. I think the concern with those stockpile areas was that they would migrate their way to the wetlands or adjacent to the project. They have probably somewhat stabilized because a fair bit of invasive species have grown up on top of them. We might want to see that they are either additionally stabilized or if the next proposal would not be within the 100-foot buffer zone, we might want to see that those are responsibly handled at this point in time, because they might not, we would not have the opportunity in the future to condition, like, hey, don't put, I'm not sure what's in those fill piles, but if they are, questionable fill, or they're just removal from other sites, they might be full of additional invasive species. So you might want to see either treatment or removal of those fill piles to the appropriate hazardous waste space under this filing. So that was basically the previous enforcement order that was issued.
So with there being enforcement order, how do we proceed with the new order?
I think
With the new filing?
The current filing is a similar proposal to the original file, or to the previous filing. So I think you could lift the enforcement order, or we could look to the enforcement order to see what what would rectify that issue, and if it is related to either removing those stockpile areas or containing them or making sure that they're not gonna be running into the wetlands, that would be the big thing. I think it could be resolved within this application.
Probably should get that enforcement order resolved to a point where you're satisfied.
Yeah, I'm happy to upload that to the drive just for your review, and I can discuss with Mr. Kravosky what would be the
Yes, sir.
move.
And then probably have a peer review of the site and walk it and whatnot.
Yes, I
Set that
would
all up.
recommend a peer review to kind of identify if that, to speak to whether or not it's an IBW.
Glenn?
Yes, the enforcement order specifically read sedimentation into the wetland. So we can clearly show any peer reviewer, there's no migration into a buffer, because there is no buffer, well, there's a bylaw buffer now, but there's nothing into the wetland. It's stabilized for 60, 70 feet before you get to the wetland. It's leveled, the fill piles did come from, what I hear, DPW, somebody that works for the town, whatever, has been dumping there. We're gonna handle that fill however it works within the house. Luckily, there's only one small patch, very small, of Japanese knotweed. Everything else is more manageable. That's one of the tougher ones to manage. So that would be isolated, segregated, just as DOT does in their subcontracts, which I just turned in them 3 times.
Okay,
So-
Emily?
So the 100-foot wetland buffer that's shown on the plan is local, or is that,
I'll answer at the same time through the chairman, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
If the chairman, we revised that plan, there's a new plan out. It says 100-foot buffer, isolated vegetated wetland buffer, because your bylaw covers freshwater wetlands. So we left it on the new plan, it specifies that it's the buffer for your bylaw,
Okay.
not the
Not
buffer for,
for,
Wetland Protection Act, which
yeah.
is what triggers in this,
The
I guess,
BLS.
wildlife habitat
Yeah.
evaluation, if you're altering floodplain within 100 feet on significant habitat within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland or bank, whichever comes into your alteration area.
And then there were several questions related to stormwater that DEP had.
Yes.
So those, I assume, will be addressed.
Yes, ma'am. As I stated earlier, Zachary Gless of Existing Grades, who did the plan, I've been in touch with, well, I've talked to him, and we talked again today, and we just got a text from him that, yes, the testing was done. Yes, he sees what DEP comments are. He's very familiar with doing these stormwater. We'll have a complete answer to DEP. We'll be well, you're both gonna get it at the same time. So when we send it to DEP, we're gonna be sending it to you, because we don't want DEP to appeal something because they didn't have the answer from us.
Makes sense, yep. And I guess that's it for me.
Diane?
Yeah, returning to the piles that have been dumped. you
Yes.
know, they're pretty astonishing. And so how will the invasive plants be disposed of so that they don't just spread themselves someplace else?
Again, the only one that I'm concerned with spreading,
the knot.
because I'm an exotic invasive plant removal specialist, actually.
Yep.
Framingham, DOT, USGS, just finished 3 acres for the town of Concord. We're doing Gardner, Japanese knotweed removal, 4,000 square feet, tarping for 3 years under a tie-in bond tarping. Who cares? Phragmites, tarping, 3 months later, kill the rhizome because it's not getting oxygen from the aerial portion, no starches, sugars. But on this one, we would segregate, and actually DOT's subcontract would be, they say to go down 6 feet, and we went down 6 feet to get one plant out for Diamond Chevrolet, one single plant, to get the root system to go to the tape. So we'll track down that one cluster, we'll segregate it. What we did with, in fact, my own property, because the Amarillo spread it on my property a few years ago, Route 12 in Oxford. The point is, we will dig it, we let it dry completely, we watch for that rhizome going down, or those rhizomes, and then that pile of cluster would have to either be spread so we can make sure that it's drying. Anything comes up in it, it will have to be put aside. The stuff we're doing in Framingham, it's going to be burnt up in New Hampshire at an exorbitant cost, because that's how strict they were on spreading it in, did I say Framingham? Hart Street. So that's the only one. The other ones are easy root systems. It's just multiflora and the main thing, what we just did for David Clark over at the City Worcester buses, because we just removed exotics there, 7 species 2 weeks ago, is making sure you get the full root system, or at least 80%. And then the second year, we follow up with another, going back again. Oriental bittersweet over there was mulberry, and I'll go on with everything else.
Okay.
The glossy buckthorn, European buckthorn, multiflora, some Japanese barberry. 6-foot-long bars, blocks, popping them out of the ground with 3 laborers and myself.
All right, that is
So we physically go after.
fantastic. Thank you very much.
We're a weeder from way back when I was a kid.
Thank you.
You all set?
Yep.
Bob?
The concerns I have, I did walk the entire area down there.
Thank you.
They're still dumping stuff down there. There was millings just dumped down there. There was a bunch of fresh dirt and stuff. They said they're still doing dumping. So, and some of the millings are like right where it runs down a hill towards Greylock Park. So the area, if they're going to continue to dump over it, it's not stabilized. So you've got stuff that's loose millings that are running down the side of that banking. That is something it just concerns me of it's not stabilized right now because they continue to dump there.
Thank you, sir. But I hadn't seen any erosion going downhill, and it's not my client doing it, and he does have to get on top of this neighbor, whoever's doing it. It's actually the guy that turned on, guy that bought it is the one dumping it. I'm not gonna say any more about that, but we will immediately put no dumping signs, because this is an ongoing, I only inherited the project. I hear what you're saying, and then the millings should be taken care of separately with, most of it's loomy material or gravel, but that millings pile is a concern. But under ABC regulation, asphalt, brick, and concrete, cured asphalt is not considered, it's considered stable fill, as long as it's 6 inches in diameter or less.
Okay. Like I said, just because I walked down there and I said the other stuff, they're dumping stuff, look at their dirt and there's all
Yes.
kinds of weeds and stuff, all being dumped down there by a dump truck.
Sure, yeah.
So you could be bringing in more invasive species by just discontinuous dumping down there. So that's something that should be taken care of.
Through the
All right.
chairman, we'll immediately get some no trespassing and signs into that site, I mean, within a few days.
Thank you.
Good. Chris?
No additional questions.
Leah?
Yeah, that would be a good recommendation. If they are having a concern from an abutter dumping onto the property, it would definitely be, it's just becoming more of your problem.
It
The
is.
pile of problem is getting bigger.
Yes.
So yeah, installing, I think in the interim, we would,
But-
prior to closing the hearing, we would want to see no trespassing signs installed.
And you will see a letter actually going to the person doing it. So it won't be just signs. So that will make sure we contact them directly. I've heard about it. I've been there only 3 times, but the last time was in the winter, and it's been dragging. We're hoping to wrap this up. We got 30 days or something, or at least 3 weeks, because of course, a week ahead of time, you want all the plans in.
Yes,
And whatever peer review is gonna take to look at it. So we'll jump on this and know we have a 30-day window. Plus or minus.
I did have a question about, because obviously this was a previous filing. I was wondering if there had been kind of any improvements to reduce impact, because I know it was a similar like road proposed. If this filing was proposing to do less for the resource areas.
Well, seeing it through the chair, because we're not in a buffer, well, we're in your buffer. Reduce, the main point I brought into that was that the only, that 28 to 30 inch black oak, which is the only mature tree on this whole corridor of potential development, up, because right below us is the town property. That Graylock is the town parkland. We're not going into that, and the only thing we could say that when we're on the edge, if whatever migrated into the town property, we'll sign an agreement if there's multiflora or something, because most of it's a forest, an older forest, so it's well shaded. It's this open area that everything came into, especially that Norway maple, which is allelotrophic, which can supply or compete with other trees because of the chemicals that it give off, and it wants to overtake and kill off the other species. So we'll do something with exotic invasives, and we'll bring it up in language on the boundary of our property and theirs. But as far as all, lessening the impact, again, yes, leave that big oak right on the erosion control barrier if you saw that one stake. I'm the one that actually had the limit of the excavation for the compensatory storage flagged out, knowing that the commission might want to see where that hole in the ground is gonna be. And also understanding that if this wasn't isolated, then I was gonna do the wildlife habitat evaluation on that area. But next time I won't trust anybody else's delineation that it's correct as BVW until I go walk it. And that's when I found out it was isolated and not triggering wildlife habitat evaluation.
And I'm sorry, one more question. I understand Avon is indicated on that, on the plan set. I think it's Avon. Because it is probably indicated on ArcGIS as a paper street. There's no intention to develop that roadway, correct?
No, in
Okay.
fact, the intention on a different sheet just shows that one extension of, yes, Avon is the one that's being extended.
I think Oregon is being extended.
But I'm sorry about that. Coming down Oregon is extended. Avon is a dead end to our north, and there is no development of that roadway below us. It's,
There is,
might be a
there's like
paper street
weird,
or something.
yeah,
but
there's a
nobody-
weird little spit of it, like several houses, several hundred feet away from this proposed at all. There's like another little spit of Avon, but I just wanted to confirm that
We're
that was
not,
not
we're
a
not
proposal.
proposing anything on
Okay.
town property down there.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Well, you will
Oh,
be
no, you're
connecting Oregon Ave to Avon Ave at the bottom of the hill, they're gonna
It
connect.
just it stops short of that. If we look at the plan, that sheet 4 of 6 does show that small extension stopping right, and I have a scaled ruler, I can give it to you.
Yeah, we
It's,
see it.
Yeah, I see it.
30, so it's 1 inch 30, so without, the scale ruler's over there, but just say we're stopping 30 feet plus or minus short of Avon. What appears. The erosion control barrier is upgrading of Avon. It is, if you can see that there, I think.
and then have you, you are proposing stormwater, are you gonna require a town, stormwater permit? Do you know if you're disturbing enough?
We will, not the engineer, will, stormwater permit for the town, well, because
Yes.
you do have.
Well, so,
stormwater.
yeah,
Your-
if
Your
you're-
bylaw requires.
Yeah, so we have a stormwater bylaw, if you're disturbing more than 5,000 square feet of
That's existing.
anything, you'll have to go before the for the stormwater permit. I'm not sure quite how much you've proposed to disturb, so it might be less.
Well, if it's cumulative, if I can just answer this, because I have this question over in Charlton.
Yeah.
So if it's cumulative, if we got the street, if we're calling the street and then whatever they develop on the lot,
Yes.
I'm gonna have them give an envelope to come up with whether or not we're at 50 by 100, whatever, 5,000.
Yeah.
Because we can't we're not here to segregate.
Yeah.
I don't know why they originally just did the road and then they're gonna do the house later. They wanted to get rid of the compensatory storage first and then to do the house second, maybe because the house itself was, in their thinking, not part of your jurisdiction, but the stormwater is, and so we'll do a cumulative.
Okay,
We'll show an envelope for the house and then come up with a number, then if we do, I don't have to say it again.
Just this, if you do that, the house can't change. And if it does
Well,
change, you'll have to come
I
back.
tell all my clients, whatever's on the plan, that's what you're building
I mean,
unless
you
you
need-
go back for an amendment or insignificant project change.
Okay.
Or new notice of intent if it's significant enough. We're running 70 projects.
yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that because it can be a holdup when you go to start construction and realize that you need another permit.
Yes,
So-
thank you for.
Yes, it's just a
that
good thing
bylaw
to
in
consider
town.
first thing.
Thank you again.
And yeah, because once you close with us,
5,000
you
square feet.
have to do
thank you.
the whole reopening thing, so it's good to find out that you need more than,
We'll get that to the engineer tomorrow.
So
Perfect.
they'll show the house, they'll show the
We'll show-
driveway, they'll show,
Everything you see for a notice of intent. development.
Walls,
We'll get it done, get it on the plan, do it now. This will be all going out tomorrow to both the client, which is Mr. Rodriguez, who I'm working with, even though there's another name on there, but maybe he's the one buying it. I'm just dealing with a Rodriguez.
Yep.
So we'll make sure everything is shown up, and if we go over 5, then you're gonna do stormwater, period. Bylaw.
Public comment?
Thank you for that. These are
Anybody-
always productive.
does anybody in the audience have anything to this? All right, so you're gonna ask for a
Request for a
continuance?
continuance, please, to your next meeting.
July 15th it is, I
Yes.
believe.
Thank you.
All right.
The last time I was here, I'll have to say, 2 years ago, when I was in front of you, and I said I was going to Crete, and to dive, and you thought I said to die. I'm going to Sardinia at the end of the month. Dive.
To die, not to die. Okay, that's good to know.
I know. Just making it light, that's.
All right, Glenn, have a good time.
You too, thanks a lot.
Travel safe.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we have a new public hearing.
Sorry. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations that Sarah Foley, 236 Cross Street, Norwell, Massachusetts, has filed an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for the delineation of bordering vegetative wetlands and the intermittent stream at 39 and 65 Gold Street. Not sure if
trying to
anyone's
remember
here.
who was in charge of that project.
Is it James?
It's Gil, Goddard, it says on here.
Oh, then we should have Doug. Where did it be Doug?
Is he on the screen?
Does it say Goddard?
Does say Goddard, to see Goddard on the bottom of the letter, a notice, I mean.
You're correct, yeah, if it's from Goddard.
So he's not
Doug or
here?
another human should be here.
We've opened it now.
So we can open it.
Now we've done it.
All right. Now
And
you-
then, Aaliyah, I guess my only comment is in the meantime, between now and our next meeting, could you get a proposal for a peer review?
Yes, yeah, I would recommend that.
Yeah, I'd written that down.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Perfect.
Okay.
We need to talk to the applicant.
Okay, so I will look to receive,
going
I will discuss with the applicant to perhaps be present at the next hearing, and also, that a peer review can be
All
initiated.
right, seeing that there's nobody here from this, we're gonna continue this to the next meeting unless they show up before we finish tonight.
Okay.
All right.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulations. Steve Lucier, 201 North Quinsigamon Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass. Is filed for the notice of intent for removal and replacement of 5 trees at 201 North Quinsigamon Avenue.
Do you want a more manageable size plan?
Jumbo size.
I usually look online, so.
All right.
We're good.
My name is Steve Lucier. I'm a general contractor for a project over on 201 North Quinsigamond, and I'm here with a proposal for remediation for the removal of 5 trees.
So what are you proposing to do?
So on the plan there, you can see down by the lake's edge, 5 trees were topped.
Mm-hmm.
So my proposal is to take and do some planting out of the buffer zone. I'm proposing doing a mixture of Colorado spruce, magnolia, some grasses, some natural grasses, and some dogwoods.
Is the buffer on here? I don't see the buffer.
The lake's, the water lake's right at the lake.
This is at the lake.
Well, this is the lake, but where's the
So-
buffer?
The 100-foot is up like this.
The 100-foot line, I don't think appears on this plan,
It's not on the plan, okay.
but we're not, we're not,
Yeah,
we can stipulate that the work was done incorrectly. I mean, these trees are right on the border of the lake.
So what do you want to do with the trees that were topped?
So we had an arborist come out, and he indicated that the trees wouldn't survive because the main trunk had been decapitated, and he recommended taking them down. So I'm proposing to bring the trees down, not take them to the ground. I think on my narrative, I'm planning on taking them down 5 feet and removing them and then replanting further back away from out of the buffer zone. I prefer, after my first and only adventure in the buffer zone to fail so miserably, I prefer to stay out of the buffer zone.
Do you have any questions, Emily?
So, from what you just said, you will not be planting within the buffer zone?
I'd prefer not to, only because this was supposed to be a simple public safety thing, and it turned into this little mini catastrophe where they topped trees. They weren't supposed to be topping trees.
Okay. I guess that was my only question.
Well, I'd like to pick up from
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so if you're taking out the red oaks, I would actually suggest that you keep them as stumps 8 to 15 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
That way they will prevent erosion while they still have that root system in the ground like that.
Okay.
And they will still provide habitat for small local animals.
Sure.
Right? And that's really important. But I would also suggest that you put in a number of shrubs down there. They're, because those stumps will eventually, they'll rot. It may take quite a while, but they'll rot. But if you put some shrubs in there, and it would be great if they were native, that would be fantastic. They would not block your vision, but they would stabilize that slope, and they would provide habitat for small birds, insects, animals. So that would be something that I would ask for.
Okay. It's a small frontage, so it's kind of, Lake Quinsigamond is a recreation area. I would just be curious as to, are you looking to do all of the plantings instead of doing the proposed plantings? We do all shrubs and we do them within that area?
No, I'm saying that because these trees were topped,
Sure.
there should be something planted in their place in that area.
Okay.
And so if you keep the stumps and put in shrubs, you do two things at once. You maintain the view and you stabilize that slope over time so that by the time those stumps are rotted out, which could take a long time,
Sure.
those shrubs will be fully established and they'll take over.
Okay. So then a follow-up question for you is, will I need to update my proposal? Or is it something, how would that work? Or is that just a nuts and bolts question I can check with Ali after?
Maybe just the plantings that he has designated on this plan, maybe take some of those and move them to this area.
Well,
No,
the
they're
Colorado
not shade lovers, unfortunately. There's tons of shade on it back
Okay.
there. Like, I
Yeah.
think magnolias and dogwoods kind of like the sun.
Okay.
And those tend to be larger. The proposal to install shrubs instead of trees would serve to not,
It's a height thought.
Sure,
yeah, a height,
yeah.
as well as making sure that the retaining walls are less
Yeah,
likely to
yeah,
fail in
I'm
the
fine.
future.
It's just that I don't know that successful plantings would happen under there if we stuck with the dogwoods and the magnolias and
I
stuff.
don't
No,
think
yeah,
that they
I would,
like
I
it
would
down
look
there.
to install different shrubs. There are some shrubs on the planting guidelines that, that do enjoy time in the shade
Like-
and these ones wouldn't need to have their feet wet all the time, because it's, obviously, there's retaining walls that they're not gonna be wet, but there are shade admiring.
So how many shrubs are you thinking, Diane?
Pardon me?
How many shrubs are you thinking that he plant here, so we can kind of condition this?
Well, it's a 2-for-1, right? So
Excuse
we're
me?
gonna eliminate the
Diane?
planting plan.
What was that?
I'm sorry. If it's a 2-for-1, so if everything that we proposed up further out of the buffer zone, we just replace that quantity, we put it down at the lake.
That's fine. If we could just,
So that down here with these 5 red oaks,
Mhm.
if you put in 10 shrubs, is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Well, based on what you're recommending.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you'd
Okay.
like to see all the replacements happening in the area that the damage was done, I'd like to be able to spread it out a little bit, so I don't have just, solid hedge of shrubs, but,
That might be reasonable.
okay.
And I'm sure that you would like to have some shade and some privacy up closer to the house as well. Because right now, it's all pretty exposed up in there.
It's naked up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys would be willing to do a mix, I could do some of this stuff up at the house. I mean, there's gonna be landscaping that's gonna happen independent of this debacle that we have here. So, we could do, if that's your recommendation, then that's what we'll do.
So if we did that, how would we split the shrubs down by the shore and then higher
ta-
trees?
so take 10 shrubs off of this total count of plantings that's proposed, put the 10 shrubs here, and then let him plant as it's shown.
Yeah, I mean, as you can
Delete it by
kind of see what
10.
we selected. They flower, they have a little bit of zip. I mean, a red oak and a white pine are kind of ho-hum, so.
So we'll just delete this amount by 10, add it to
Move
where
them down
these-
to the lake.
Move it down to the lake, and Aaliyah will provide a
I have the list, Elias.
shrub that we can plant here.
You've
Yes,
provided me
yeah,
with
the
list.
planting guidelines have
Yeah,
been
I
provided.
just
so
have
you
to
can-
sift through the 500 species on the list.
All right,
and
so we
figure out
can
what a
just,
shrub is.
is that,
Can we
I
do
have variety.
blueberries?
You could do like a low bush or a high bush blueberry.
There you go.
I think low bush is an upland plant.
Yeah, low bush would be, and then you'd have,
They need
High
some,
bush.
Well, low bush does tend to grow in the understory, so they are a little more amenable to a shade
Okay,
loving.
I'll check the list.
You could also, I would recommend a variety of shrubs so that you have, both not a monoculture of shrubs, but you also have, yeah, you have availability and it kind of protects you against.
You don't want
know, if-
Kentucky
if
bluegrass
the- If the
everywhere.
blueberry bug comes through,
Sure.
you don't want all your shrubs getting.
Yep, to be decimated. Sure.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
You guys all set?
Yes.
Okay, the question I'd like to put like a number, like a 10-foot on all those trees off, the ones you're cutting down, leave them 10 feet high
Okay.
across. I'd like to see a couple trees there, like real trees put up again, maybe a little further up. But what were your plans for the landscaping? I mean, obviously you've got a large area there. What else, you said you had landscape, and what else plans you have for landscape? You putting some grass
There's
in
gonna
there?
be grass.
What
The
else?
original plan, if you kind of noted that those two little areas were sort of up by a little closer to the house. So there's gonna be an area where people will be sitting, so something a little more attractive. And then there's gonna be some plantings around the front. Things haven't been chosen yet. There'll probably be some beds on either side of the walkway, going from the driveway to the house. And then, up front, I'm thinking unfortunately, they want to do arborvitae to create some privacy because the road's busy and loud, but up at the front.
Yeah, I mean, that's the front, that's beyond the, we're talking
No, no,
about the
I know,
wetland
it's
stuff.
just landscape stuff.
Would you willing to put up like 2 trees, maybe just like real trees, not the bushes, maybe somewhere in that back of that house in that area somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, I like,
Just to-
my
'cause I'm-
personal faves are what's on the plan. So magnolia dogwoods, they give you a little bit of something in the spring and they just different looking, you know? The canopy's different, they're attractive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just 10 foot on those stumps.
Chris?
I'm all set.
Malia?
I would recommend possibly a special condition that any of the landscaping that is done within that 100-foot buffer, so you are kind of extending up to the side yards where they probably, the future homeowners would like to have some privacy, that those be native species as well. So in lieu of an arborvitae or something, you could do something like the spruces or any kind of.
The options are that for the
Green.
privacy, for sound reduction and privacy, is arborvitae or like a privet hedge or something, which neither is desirable for
Yeah.
not native species. But that's
Yeah.
gonna be up at the street.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to also kind of maintain some privacy along the side yards, because I know it opens up to
Yep.
the neighbors as well.
Yep.
In those areas, those probably would be subject to the 100-foot buffer zone. I would recommend a more native evergreen, so selecting a
Well, I
species of
mean,
evergreen.
the spruce was
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the original proposal. It's an attractive tree and it's green year round.
Yeah, yeah, so I would recommend just a condition that all of the species all landscaping species within that 100-foot buffer be native species. And then we'll obviously have the specific number of mitigation shrubs or trees. But in addition to that, any species that are planted within the 100-foot buffer zone for landscaping could be native. So then up at the roadway, you can have your run-of-the-mill arborvitae, and at the rear of the house, you can have spruces and leopard
Although they probably will be doing some grassing down.
Yes, yeah,
to
so
that.
I would.
There's that cement path which steps down to that like 2-tier terracing they have there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so probably just for things larger than the
Sure.
lawn.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Was your plan to remove that rotted out terrace or no?
I'm sorry, the
That-
what?
That platform you have there, was your plan to
TBD.
remove that or no?
I didn't include it on this because the owners haven't made a decision yet on what they want to do, if they want to remove and replace or just permanently remove it.
But that's something we're gonna have to address if they're gonna do that work, right, within the buffer zone, build a new pad?
If the proposal would be to replace or build a new different sized pad, they would probably need to come before us with just the removal of the pad. That probably would not require additional permitting in the future. But I think Mr. Lucier has learned from his experience and will come and ask me
Well,
if he has any intentions of doing anything near the 100
We're not
foot
using
buffer
those
zone.
tree guys ever again. That's-
So.
They won't be doing the work as we move forward.
Oh, goodness.
So, yeah, I'll probably be out there to make sure that those plantings are happy, in the next in the next couple of months or years. And then during that, we can kind of discuss if there's a proposal to do something.
So in the order of conditions, do we want to say that the shrubs or the trees need to survive over a period of a certain number of
Yeah,
years?
you could have a requirement that, any shrubs or trees that die within the first, within the establishment period of, for the life of the permit, be replaced, just so that they're not, a pile of fire hazard in 3
Kindling?
years. Sorry?
Kindling?
Yes, exactly, so that we don't come back to kindling in 3 years. And, I would maybe recommend a specific condition that says nothing besides landscaping was discussed or approved under this permit. Any work on the deck or any other structures
That's a
within the
separate
100-foot
item.
zone were not covered and have not been approved for anything. And that would just be kind of a, extra condition that might be considered.
Okay, any more questions?
I don't think so.
Any questions from the audience?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, this is Doug. My internet went out. Just wanted to speak out, make sure you guys know I'm here for the ANRAD.
Yeah, all right, so we're on a different hearing right now, so we'll come back to you, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on this? Anybody? Okay, so we'll close this, and we'll vote on it later on, okay? All right,
Thanks.
We're gonna go back to 30.
well, let's
Okay.
what do you want to do? We'll go back, or do you want to finish? We'll finish up with this one.
Yeah, why don't we open 29 Hill,
Yeah.
and then we'll go back to
Yep.
3965.
New public hearing.
Doug, did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotcha. I'll hang on.
Awesome, thank you.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, in the Town of Shrewsbury Wetlands Bylaw and Regulation that Prestige Property Development, 13 Presidential Drive, Southborough, Massachusetts, has filed a request to amend the order of conditions issued to construct a common driveway and 3 single-family homes at 29 Hill Street.
Is this just one copy?
Yes.
Okay, I'll flip through it then. Come here, you.
To amend.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm James Tatro from Expedited Engineering, here representing Prestige Property Development, one of whose principals is sitting before you, Iman.
Good evening.
What you have before you is a request to amend the earlier order of conditions issued under file number 285-1934, which was also for 3 single-family homes on a common driveway at 29 Hill Street. It's a 6.6 acre site on the north side of Hill Street. It's bounded on the north side, just off the property, is Ross and Hill Brook. And there's another stream on the unnamed stream on the east side of it. And so, in addition to wetlands being delineated as part of that earlier order, there are riverfront areas on site. What we're before you for is the applicants first purchased the property and looked at the plan and asked, gee, what is the status of this permit? And Ms. Cassell pointed out how there had been the Permit Extension Act, and that permit was still valid. They looked further into the plans, and I did as well, and they saw several things that they didn't really like about how the earlier plans were done, and we drew up a concept plan of how we would intend to change things, and we met with Aaliyah, and we also then looked even still further and realized we could even improve in some other ways. And I want to just point out to you the differences in this plan as opposed to the plan which was given in order of conditions, I think, back in 2022.
This plan, on this, and you'll see it on sheet ESC1 in the set, we lowered the grades of the proposed houses here, and that enabled us, for a stretch of about 200 feet on the east side of the proposed house on Lot 3, to pull the grades back further from the wetland than they were previously proposed. In addition to that, the previous plan referenced in the previous order proposed about 23,900 square feet of impervious cover between the common driveway, individual driveways, and houses. We've actually knocked that down over 4,000 square feet to 19,000 square feet and some change. So we've moved the limit of work farther from the wetlands on the east side of the property. We've reduced the impervious cover. You have, as part of this request to amend this order of conditions, we believe that the two houses in the back here, numbers 2 and 3, are actually very slightly farther from the red line being the riverfront area limits, farther from it than the houses shown on that previously referenced plan. But even with a 25-foot backyard on the house on Lot 3 and only 15 feet of side yard on Lot 2, we still have some minor alteration of riverfront area. And it's actually about 3% on the site. So we included an alternatives analysis, looked at, there were 4 other properties for sale in town. 3 of them were single lots where you could at most build 1 lot. One of them, listed as 0 Cherry Street, it's actually south of Ashton Drive, actually has definitely some resource areas on it as well, and it's also landlocked. And the applicant's Prestige Property Development own this property at this time. So there's not a substantially economically equivalent alternative property that could have served this same purpose and that would have had fewer impacts. But I think one other thing from the engineering side, the previous plan had a part of the drainage system was plastic chambers under the driveway, the proposed common driveway, with just a couple feet of cover. And I really didn't like that. That was one other feature we were looking to change. So I think what we have before you is again, is a request to amend the order of conditions to a plan which I think in multiple significant ways is less impactful than the previous plan. Again, farther from the wetland over here, less impervious cover, and I think it's also, again, just a more practical design. So I'll try and take any questions that you have, but I think the applicant is actually proposing, and again, he's not increasing the size of the project in the course of requesting this amendment. The previous order was for a 3-lot development. This is still a 3-lot development. Nothing has changed in that respect. These are basically the same size house as was shown on the previous plan. This is not a matter of the applicant swooping in and being greedy and saying, I can do something, I can, create more here. It's really making this, from the applicant's perspective and from in one respect, the drainage system, the engineering perspective, a better plan. I'll try and answer any questions that you have.
Emily?
I guess, what's the additional impact? Have you calculated the additional impact to the riverfront area?
The previous plan showed the 2 houses on Lot 2 and Lot 3, as I say, literally a few feet closer to the wetland than each of these houses, but didn't quantify, said that there was going to be no impact in the riverfront area. And I guess I'm a little skeptical that there was really going to be none, but officially that was what it represented. And I would again note, we're just proposing to alter 3%. And as an aside, I would mention also, we, as I say, we at one point met with Aaliyah, and at that point we had a version with, I think, 6% of alteration, and it was her suggestion to try and tone it down as much as possible, and we did reduce that from 6 to 3.
No further questions.
Diane?
Yeah, I do have some questions. Let's start with the knotweed. So on the east side of the common drive,
Yeah.
before it all branches apart there, I believe it's before that, there's a lot of knotweed. And it goes right down to the wetlands, right? So and I believe that must have happened with the original clearing of that land there. Someone came with it on their equipment and they left it there.
I would guess, I don't think any fill was brought in, so you're right, they
No,
must
I
have
don't
brought
think
it in
fill-
really inadvertently and just in
Yeah,
Not
treads and whatnot.
when
Yeah.
it finds a way,
it's
no
a
matter what, so.
it's like a forest of knotweed. It's a lot. So one question that I want to that I'd like to know is that needs to be addressed, right? And so how would you address that?
I think what we would suggest is we would present we would certainly be amenable to a condition from the commission saying that the applicant should add a invasive species management plan before that the commission would issue the amended order. And we would have to do that to Leah's satisfaction.
Okay, all right. Yes, and once the knotweed was out of there, which I don't know how long that would take, right? Once it was out of there, I would ask that you consider putting in either native meadow species or native trees along that east side of the common drive.
To shade them out?
No,
Do you think,
no,
the knotweed?
after they are gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you put in trees, they will eventually shade them out, but it's a lot, you know, so, I don't know about that. It certainly wouldn't happen fast. Okay, so that is one thing that I wanted to bring up. And this common drive here
Yes.
is, it's right at the 30-foot, and it's well within the 100-foot zone.
Yes.
Right, and so, so I really was hoping that you would mitigate by putting in native trees or native meadow wherever possible in there.
Okay. Certainly, we would have no objection to one quick item is we've got the proposed water service lines on the
Yeah.
east side of the drive, so
Yeah.
we'd have to go really right to the limit of the barrier
Right.
there, but we would certainly have no objection to any additional condition specifying that additional trees be planted at that spot.
Right, and I wish I understood more about the effect on the stream up here, but I'm not sure what.
I would just note that, you know, the area here that is proposed to be altered, this is going to come down, this is gonna be a cut down. So right now, this area where I'm putting my finger is at elevation 588 and change, let's say. You know, the raindrop that falls here is actually running, you know, this way down
Yes.
to this stream.
Yes.
The raindrop that falls on this slope is actually gonna go into the backyard, around the house, to the driveway, either into infiltration there or be picked up by catch basins in this common driveway. So what happens on this slope isn't going to affect downstream towards the eventual destination point of that intermittent stream.
Okay.
So though, yes, it is in the outer riparian zone of the stream over here, but what's done here is really not gonna affect something that's gonna be, in effect, up a slope, across the plateau, and then down a slope the other
Yeah.
way.
Right, exactly, and it is already like that up
Yep.
there, yeah.
Correct.
So, are these houses, do they have a septic system, or
No, these,
are they on town sewer?
these will be on town sewer.
How lovely. Okay, okay. I will pass this along.
I have no questions.
Do you have erosion control shown? I'm just kind of looking at,
Yeah,
I'm on G1.
the coloring kind of blots it out a bit, but we're showing the orange barrier here all along the east side, and then again to shield the abutter's property. That's a proposed sediment control barrier consisting of silt fence and wattles.
And do you have like a stone scrubber pad at the entrance?
Yes, we got a 15 by 50 foot site exit mat. Again, my perhaps overzealous coloring made it
Okay, all right.
disguise a bit.
Chris?
No, no additional questions.
Elena?
DEP did seem to have some questions about the project. They have not had an opportunity to issue any comments, so I would probably recommend leaving it open
Sure.
to wait to see if they have any comments. You may want to reach out to them and just be like, did you have any questions, or did you
Yeah.
just want all the plans?
Yeah, we did send plan copies to them, and they asked for additional information. We gave it to them, but yeah, we haven't really heard from them for about a week or so.
Yeah, and I think they're just swamped constantly, so I think it might take a little bit. I can check in with them as well. And then also just getting an invasive species management plan to treat those invasive species. Obviously, that would require additional work closer to the wetland, because it probably is between the 30 and 0 foot buffer that we located those knotweeds. So it would, I guess, be to the commission to okay work closer to the wetland with the obvious benefit of removing a bunch of invasive plants.
Right, I don't think that you'd be able to pull out 6-foot deep roots, the way Glenn was talking about. And so that might be using, what's it called?
I cannot remember the name.
We
of
can't
it.
pronounce it. It's
but yeah,
not
there's
Roundup.
a
It's
chemical management
glycophosphate or something like that.
Glyphosate?
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. It gives me the heebie-jeebies to use something like that right next to the wetlands. So a plan,
Through the chair, if I may. The knotweed has been there historically. I spoke to some of the abutters, and we were looking at it together, and it's on the undisturbed side of the ECB control. So I guess my question is, to chase down that knotweed, you folks are more comfortable with us going right up to the 0 line of the wetland to mitigate the knotweed? Or is it something that, since it's on the other side of the ECB and it's in the undisturbed area and it's not being affected by the construction, do we leave that alone?
it won't stay where it is. I mean, if one little piece of knotweed breaks off and falls onto the ground, it's gonna root.
Understood.
And if it gets into water and flows someplace, it's gonna go there and root. So it isn't a plant that can be considered undisturbed. I think everything disturbs it.
Understood. I've just been trained to stay away from the wetland, and then this would be the opposite. This is go chase it down, and then.
I would say come back with your mitigation plan,
Exactly.
explain exactly where you plan to do your mitigation, and show it, and that way everybody's on the same page, and we'll go from there.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, but I would see the benefit in having impacts closer to the wetland if this invasive species that has a significant blight on the community is removed. Yeah.
Okay, then I guess should ask for a continuance. Is that right?
Yep.
I have
July 15th.
one more question.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, and just haven't asked the audience.
For the infiltration
Yep.
structures, what are the soils like on site?
There's sand.
Great,
It's
okay.
fantastic stuff.
That's
In fact, we had earlier done, the previous owner was going to put a septic system for one house here. We did 2 deep holes here, which were just sand. We were out a few weeks ago, and we did 5 more deep holes. The only texture soil seen below the top and subsoil at every hole was sand.
Okay, good. Because I was wondering about the grading in the back, if that would
Yeah.
be conducive to, draining, but
Oh, it's gonna drain. You're gonna have trouble getting, silt off this site, I would suspect, at the height of construction in a rain event, because it is just sand. Not a ton of gravel to it, but only sand. And it's mapped as something that you might expect that. It's mapped as Hinckley series soil, which are one where you might expect it to come out like that.
All right. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have
Go right ahead.
one more thing. I did want to, you probably will need a stormwater permit. I didn't know if you
Yep.
wanted to start that process soon, so in the instance that,
We're about to.
yeah, Mr. Ty is not, you can coordinate those, so revised plan sets can include, or revised plan sets under this order can include the most up-to-date stormwater stuff.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. We'll see you July
15.
15.
All the people who must have stayed here just to talk about this, if they get a shot, come on.
Anybody have any questions in the audience? No. Oh, you do? There you are.
What about the?
You gotta come up to the,
Species, I can make myself.
yeah, but
Yeah,
you
he
can't,
said
you
you
gotta
can't- you
use
can't hear ya.
you gotta use the microphone.
In the room, yes, you can be heard, but not necessarily.
Now for the folks at home.
Okay, you mentioned knotweed as an invasive species. There's also Phragmites right there on the eastern,
Oh, I didn't see that.
yeah.
There's Phragmites there?
Yes, right at the eastern bordered brook.
Okay,
Lot
thank you
of it.
very much.
You're welcome.
Nice job.
So they're gonna present a plan to us to mitigate, so I'm sure they'll include everything they find.
Phragmite might be a tougher case, because that typically is a wetland species.
I don't really have a question. I was
Can you just state your name?
Sure, Michelle Brown. I don't have a question. I just wondered if I could get a picture of the updated map. Is that okay? If I could just take a, okay.
I can also send you I can send you a digital copy.
Yeah,
Oh,
we,
okay,
yeah,
that'd be great.
we sent this in as a PDF of this picture.
Oh, perfect.
So
Okay.
it could have been.
Let me see if I have.
Thanks so much.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're continued. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just grab her contacts.
All right, so we're moving back to a new public hearing that was previously.
65 Gold?
It was previously opened, so that would be 65 Gold Street. So just hold on 1 minute, a lady will be right back.
All right.
Okay, back to 39 and 65 Gold Street.
All right, you're up.
All right. Yeah, I apologize for keeping you waiting. My router is not working, so I'm on
Just
cell
state
right
your
now.
your
Anyway.
name and everything for the record.
Doug Dillon from Goddard Consulting. I submitted an ANRAD for applicant Sarah Foley, and this is for 39 and 65 Gold Street. So ANRAD, wetlands only, no work proposed, right? So this is the currently existing property in current and former agricultural use. So I delineated two primary wetland lines, one starting in the top northwestern corner of the property with the A series. And that very ironically formed a horseshoe shape. This is a horse-related property around the perimeter of the two lots, going all the way up to A125. I also delineated on-site, centrally located, a Shrewsbury jurisdictional isolated vegetated wetland, approximately 1,200 square feet, and that is delineated with flags B1 through 10. Those are the only two lines there. Relatively simple, straightforward. Happy to answer any questions regarding the property or the delineation that you may have.
Emily?
I guess I don't have any questions other than, I mean, I think the commission should consider a peer review.
Yes.
And whenever that site visit is scheduled, Aaliyah, if you could make us aware and we could possibly attend.
Yeah, of course.
I second that.
Diane?
I agree. I would love to attend that.
Bob,
I have no questions.
Chris,
No additional questions.
Aaliyah?
One of the resource areas identified does seem to include a vernal pool or a potential vernal pool. It is located not on their property, but is on town property next door. They might want to consider, it might not be part of this filing, but they might want to consider, I'm sure the town would be amenable to granting them permission to have that vernal pool go through the process of certification for any future development. And that might be a condition you may want to consider for an order of conditions down the line.
Did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll look into that. I know this is just for the line, but that's something to keep on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I think that's it. I will seek to receive peer review.
Okay. Yeah, just, we'll circle up afterwards and figure all that out as well as a site visit. and
Sounds
take it
good.
from there.
Hold on, any questions from the audience? All right, so we'll continue, you're gonna ask for a continuance till July 15th?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you for your time. Apologies again for,
No
the delay.
problem, that's not an issue.
All right.
All good.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Good night, Doug.
All right, moving on to new and old business. We did the RDAs,
Yeah, those are done.
now we're on to, discuss and sign order conditions, so we're on to the Newton Pond.
We had a special condition of 5 years, and we should see Boylston's order of conditions.
Yes, to coordinate any conditions that
So
may
we
require
can we say that,
coordination.
we want to mirror their orders of conditions, or just have review,
Coordinate?
receipt, review, and approval of their orders of conditions?
Yeah, I think review and approval would be
Receipt, review, and approval of their orders of conditions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, I think what we did when you, the Grafton down on Centec, you kind of took what they had in theirs and put it onto ours, or is that kind of what you did?
Yes, yeah, we did somewhat mirror theirs.
Okay.
In that instance, the Grafton had more stringent regulations. I'm not familiar with any orders of conditions with Boylston, so I'm not sure how
Right.
their conditions shake out, but, yeah, I could look to either mirror and emulate
Okay,
the conditions of Boylston.
all right, so would somebody like to make a motion? Or any other discussion on that? No, would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to issue an order of conditions for, is it 32? Which one is it?
Not 32, just Newton Pond.
Newton
Oh,
Pond, yeah.
Newton Pond, DEP
Commission.
file number 285, 2023, with the condition that our agent reviews the order of conditions prepared by West Boylston Conservation Commission.
Boylston, right?
Yeah, wait, not West Boylston?
No.
Just
Right.
Boylston.
Just
Okay,
Boylston, yes.
Boylston.
And this is a 5-year
5 years.
lake,
Oh, yeah,
lake
5-year.
management plan?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next one, I believe, is Route 20 Hafford Turnpike.
Yes, and I didn't have any notes on that, for,
I think just
there's
a
no
conf-
comments from
I
DEP.
would recommend just a confirmation condition that only hand tools be used and that the sites only be accessed by foot. Just to,
I was gonna say, just hand tools only.
yeah, exactly.
All right, somebody like to make that motion?
Make a motion that on the 2285-2026, the Route 20 Hafford Turnpike soil testing by the DOT, be given as long as they have these tools only. The condition would be only hand tools only to get the borings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Access by foot, did you say that?
Access,
Sorry, who's my second?
Access by
Second.
foot.
access by foot, yes,
Yeah, okay.
in hand tools.
Thought that I put that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, this is 3339 Green Street.
3369 Green Street.
3369.
I had a couple of special conditions. One, that special condition of slopes be mowed only once per year in early spring preferably, and that the native seed mix, wet mix be used in the detention basin. Was there any other?
I don't think so, right?
Nope, I
Second.
do believe that covers
So,
it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 33-69 Green Street with the condition that native seed mix, of wet mix be used in the detention basin, and a special condition that the slopes be mowed once per year in early spring.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Then we have, I believe it's 201 North Quinsigamon Ave.
Yeah, that was removal of trees. So Diane, maybe it's best if you make this one since you
I hate doing
had
it.
a lot of conditions. I wrote down 40 different species.
So they had included several in their proposed landscaping plan, that they were all native species. I think the only addition was a specific number of
So
shrubs to be
And
planted.
height of the trees.
So that the ones
yes,
that are
in some
within the 100-foot buffer should be native species, and that the portion that's part of the remediation should be, we should have 10 shrubs that are planted near the water line. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
Near the trees that were cut.
Near the trees that were, so near the remediation area.
Yep.
Do you want to say like within the 15-foot or within the 30-foot, just to kind of,
The 30-foot.
Okay.
Gives them room to spread it out if they need to. So I, Mr. Let me make sure I got this correct. Which property is it?
201 North Quincy?
201 North Quincy. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue issue an order of conditions for 201 North Quinsigamon Avenue for the removal and replacement of 5 trees, and with the condition that the trees that are planted outside of the 100-foot buffer zone be native species. I'm sorry, within the 100-foot buffer zone be native species, and that 10 shrubs be placed within the 30-foot buffer zone as part of the remediation plan.
And that the stumps of the trees be
left at a minimum
10 feet.
10 feet high.
10 feet.
And that the stumps of the trees be left at a minimum of 10 feet high.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discuss and sign certificates of compliance.
I have lost my agenda. I have 3 certificates of compliance before you tonight. The one is for 8 Grist Mill Circle. Oddly enough, this is not related to the RDA for 8 Grist Mill Circle. This was for the construction of the home in the either early 2000s or late 90s. They just went to sell their house and realized they never closed out the permit. The house was constructed per plan, and they've not had any additional impacts to the resource area, so I would recommend.
Did they submit an as-built or an engineer?
They did not have a requirement to submit an as-built because it's their permit from the early 2000s absolutely did not require that. They did, let me see what they submitted instead.
I mean, anything that you should have, the Form 8A has a checkbox that if the application included plans that were prepared by a professional, then you have to either have a certification by said professional or some sort of as-built. So,
I thought that section of 8A was if there was a condition that related to requiring an as-built.
if we
If there
pull
was
up
an
8A.
as-built, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
let me-
seeing that this
Let me
has
grab 8A.
gone back like almost 20 years, I mean,
Yeah, I guess, but, okay. I mean, I feel like my thoughts on requests for certificates of compliance because of a real estate transaction, a lot of things tend to get missed. So I mean, I'm amenable to issuing the certificate, but it's just something to pay attention to in the future.
Sometimes when these things come up, they're not even the owner that
Well-
was there when the.
But it runs with
just-
the
it's a
property.
second, yeah.
I completely understand that, but it ends up being a hardship for these people too. It's an unfair burden, I think.
I do typically go to the original conditions, or to the original conditions and find the original plan set to see if there were any differentiations to the plan. This one was a more straightforward one. I absolutely understand where you are coming from, because I have gone out into the field and found that we added an addition 15 years ago, or we added a shed that wasn't supposed to be there, and they have not received certificates of compliance for that. This one, I did find that there's a pretty significant retaining wall that kind of marked the edge of that like rose the property up away from the wetlands. So there really was limited real estate to work with to add anything, and I did not see anything that was not part of the original filing.
What was the order this was issued for?
This,
Just for construction of a house is all?
yeah, it was the construction of a single-family home. It probably it included the construction of the retaining wall as well, because it was the original filing actually was very well developed for the time period, because it did actually include details on the construction of the retaining wall, and was not just like, we'll build a wall, which I have found in other filings to be the case.
Understood.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing in OpenGov either on it. I was hoping to see it, maybe as built in OpenGov, but there's nothing there.
No. Yeah, I think that was beyond the time that we, at this point in time, almost every permit that's issued for anything does now require an as-built. But yeah, I think that was before that time.
Sounds good.
And then the other one that we have is 210 South Quinsigamon Avenue. I think Anne is here for that. She's the woman on the screen. And she can kind of speak to the project a little bit, if she would like to.
Ann, can you hear us? I can't hear you.
We
We
can't
can
hear you.
see you, but we can't hear you.
Okay, now
Oh.
you can hear.
We got you
Yeah.
now, thank you.
Okay, Mark is another trustee, and he's actually there in person, so I'll let him take over.
Okay. Come on up, Mark.
My name is Mark Blum, live at 210 South Quinsigamon. With Ann as a trustee, as she mentioned, we had a wall that fell into the lake. We're on the lakefront. So the wall was repaired. We had the surveys done, both by the land survey and with a civil engineer. We did make one change to the original order where we were originally going to plant grass on the top of the wall, but we found with talking to the construction engineer that it would be more beneficial, we put wood chips and some plantings and some pea stone to be more pervious so that the water can soak in instead of run off. You know, we've had a lot of drought-type conditions in the summers, not this year, but in past. So we felt that was a better surface area for above the wall, but everything else should be back in compliance with the original orders.
Sounds good.
So Aaliyah, did you see that? Does it look?
Yes,
look we-
yeah. Yeah, and they did submit their letter of approval saying that it was all done to plan.
Okay,
And it looked equally pervious in the area, so.
all right. Any questions? Oh, Emily?
Just real small question.
Diane?
You actually put in wood chips, not bark mulch, but actual wood chips?
Yeah, it's the like it was the actual wood chips without the,
Without the bark?
without the bark.
It's
and-
playground wood chips.
Okay, great. It'll last longer. That's the only reason I was asking. Great.
Yeah, I made sure they didn't have any dyes or anything as well.
Okay,
All right.
I think you're all set. Thank you, Mark.
thank you. You're all set.
And then the last certificate of compliance is for 33 to 69 Green Street. This was for the previous proposal for an order of conditions, with the signing of the secondary order of conditions this evening. They want to close out the previous one as invalid, so no
Sounds good.
work done.
All right. And updates.
Yes, our first update is for 525 Hartford Turnpike. Tom can speak to,
I'm going to,
you are going to recuse yourself, get out of here. And Tom can speak to after the previous hearing, I did issue an emergency certificate because there was concern about, there's like this extensive, weird septic system that is located on the property. So if the commission would like to ratify that order or that emergency certificate tonight, that within the emergency certificate that was issued, there was a requirement that obviously the water be drained slowly so that no impacts were felt downstream or by the critters that are living in or around that wetland. There was also a requirement that the drawdown be sponsored by a wetland scientist. Andrea Kendall was present throughout the lowerings that occurred and was present when I went out into the site to take a look. There is still a significant amount of water there. Nobody lost their homes in the reduction. And probably what was the total reduction that you would say occurred?
Sure, little over a foot right now.
Yes, okay.
So I guess so the emergency classification is a threat to public health and safety. So that is going to be the septic system. Is that currently being flooded or impacted?
Yeah, so Tom Corbett, Go Venture. We have site control in 525, just trying to get somewhere with this water. So yeah, to your point, Emily, the septic system is extensive on this site. I don't know if you're familiar with 525 with the restaurant out front, and it's got an access road that goes through the pond. It was permitted work back in '78 through the Board of Health, including that access road that brought gray water piping all the way out across the pond and up onto the hill for it to leach. So with that, and a couple of you weren't here at the last meeting, so I guess I'll step back a little bit in time. Originally, got my dates here. Sometime around like May 6th, Emily and I met out on site. At that time, water was very high and it was flooding completely over the road. And then since then, at the May 13th meeting, we discussed here, with a couple of us anyway, about drawing down there is no beaver on site. The colony is abandoned, and the water is just was impounded so much that it was going over probably 30% of the access road from the start of it, so you couldn't get to the other side whatsoever. And it's really causing a problem in our delineation efforts in trying to get top of bank of the pond, trying to delineate where that bordering vegetated wetland starts and ends. So this is really the first step in along a bigger plan for development. So trying to get that water down to a level so underneath the access road, there are 2 culvert pipes installed which connect 2 sides. And those pipes completely underwater. I was there today, took some pictures today of the water, and that was down to 0.8 tenths of a foot on the meter gauge that Andrea had put in the ground there. So that overall, that drop has been roughly, we'll say a foot, 3 inches maybe overall. And there's still today only just 1.5 inches of the pipe actually showing. So there's still trees that are inundated. There's still large growth trees that are inundated. And Emily and I discussed on the site walk most recently, I think that was on the 11th, and maybe bringing it down just a little bit more to get the pipes actually noticeably functioning from side to side. And I think moving forward, I think we're from my point of view, Go Venture is comfortable with the level about where it is right now for efforts of delineation matters. And then we'll be in front of you for an ANRAD at some point, and then a full scope NOI through MIPA, all this stuff with the proposed development coming forth.
So you're asserting that there's no beaver.
That's correct.
And you don't anticipate the beaver coming back and just doing the same thing?
Nope, so I met with Tom Gravel out of Barry. He does a lot of DOT work with beavers. So he's a specialist of sort. And I met him on site, I think the day after Aaliyah and I originally met out there, so that would have been like May 7th. He assessed the site. There's no signs of a beaver being there recently within probably 3 or 4 years. Based upon the age of the chewed wood, no activity shown on the dam itself. He recommended taking a little bit or just even walking across the beaver dam to relieve that water a little bit to see if beavers came back. So that's the direction we went into. And then discussing ways to draw that down with him, he had just suggested to pull sticks and remove dirt as necessary in lifts of like 3 to 5 inches. And that's exactly what we've done since
And so I
May
guess,
28th.
I mean, is it an emergency or do you just want to do your delineation, I guess?
So the gray water pipes are completely underwater. And it's
Okay.
a permitted work. It's impounded water affecting very extensive area. The water's receded 25 feet in some areas.
All
So
right.
it's very shallow in nature, I guess. And I think moving forward, I'm satisfied with where the water is coming to now, in order to get us to the point of an NOI to address it as a whole and what that might look like long-term, right? So we've got the beaver dam that has been there for God knows how long. It's been impounding water for on and off over the years through drought conditions, obviously not. So it's pretty evident that it's been wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry. The growth has come back already pretty extensively with the receding of the water line. And looking long-term, it's just trying to figure out where that balance is. And like, we're basing it off of where the trees are on the edge of the water right now. And I think there is a fine balance of where we bring that dam down to ultimately long-term and create some kind of spillway of sort, with stone or something, just to.
So, I mean, if
Slow
if it's been happening over years and years of this inundation, the gray water pipes have been, I assume they've been underwater before. So
They
now
very well
it's
could
an
have been.
emergency. I just don't, yeah. Those were my questions, and I'll just go on, Diane.
Actually, I'm enjoying your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to ask, so I think we should pass it on to Bob.
All right, I was down there today. There's no, I think your flags, the flag you have, the flags behind the building are definitely, it's gotta come back this way, because it looks like there's still plants, some wetland stuff, 'cause I know it's been a while, so the wetlands look like there's planting stuff that's wet over in that area closer to the building. And there was things swimming around in that water today. I don't know what, it was hard to tell what they were, but you could see them swimming around there, but they weren't just little tiny things, they were good sized something swimming in that water.
Not
So-
fish.
It wasn't a fish. It wasn't, I don't think it was a fish, because it was on top, it was on the water, you could see a head moving in there, so I don't know what it was.
There's quite a bit of wildlife over there, birds, fish. There's giant tadpoles over there. There's
Yeah, we
hundreds
saw,
of
I think,
thousands of
bullfrog tadpoles that are pretty close to being ready to be bullfrogs. And then Andrea Kendall of LEC Environmental was the wetland scientist that was there while we were, did suspect that there are probably fish located in the pond.
Yeah, they were found. Dan Wells from LEC had conducted some other site investigations for the eventual proposal coming to you guys, and he had found fish in the pond. So knowing that, we're obviously cautious of how far that water comes down, and while we were there on site, I was like, oh, I'll put a stick out like as far as I can reach, and it was at least 3 to 4 feet deep right off the bank. What I would like to do moving forward, just at my own leisure, is to get a depth from the pipes to the dam itself to understand how deep that pond is. Because I think where it's at right now, maybe a little bit lower to make those pipes work, pending kind of what we've got going forward for an application to come in front of you. It's pretty satisfactory right now, and I think it's suitable. So I think I'd like to see it remain where it is now, obviously. And I guess over the time from now to our application to the commission for the development, I'd just be looking after it and making sure that it doesn't get plugged up and it just remain as it is right now.
It appears it's definitely below the septic system now. It's not over
Yeah.
that with a cover, so it's way away from that right now. So I think at this point, I don't think it should be dropped anymore.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, we we were on site last week, I agreed that that this was a good level, that the wildlife that is living there needs to continue being able to live there, so, no additional, and they also, with the issuance of the emergency certificate, they only had the 30 days, so they're running out of time probably also, I'm not sure.
So there was an emergency certificate already ordered, or issued, I mean?
I had issued one.
Okay.
It
And it's
could-
about to
yeah.
expire?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It would serve to be ratified tonight. Obviously, this is not set in stone because there's no permit application, but we have talked extensively about or considerations for the future so that either a beaver could live there happily and like how that could continue being a habitation space for a beaver in the future for anyone that might want to move in, because the lodge is still in existence. I did not want to, your beaver man had recommended that the lodge be removed. I would not recommend that. We will leave the house available if someone wants to live there. Obviously in that instance, yeah, the dam might go back, and at that point we might want to see something different happening, because I don't like, this was an abandoned home. I did not see any fresh chew, but it gets obviously even more complicated when you're removing a beaver in addition to removing its home. So I would not want to see. And then, yeah, any future work would make that wetland function better.
Because beavers usually do return.
Yes, yeah, we typically will see beaver issues crop up every couple of years as the next beaver moves along. So trying to figure out how to better this beaver space before the next beaver moves in so that there's not a tussle next time over who gets the land.
Agreed.
And then I would also recommend any future ANRAD would of course be peer reviewed, but we might want to kind of note the history of the property as well to just confirm that any delineation that's done is accounting for area that may have been inhabited long enough by that beaver pond to be jurisdictional area.
Okay. Any more questions?
I'm all set.
Okay. Anything else to add? So do we just need to sign another order, emergency order?
Yes, I seem to have misplaced my own copy, so I'll give you a fresher sheet. I also did not give you enough orders of conditions because I didn't have enough printed, so I will, gonna run upstairs.
Okay.
And you guys can either hang out or start talking about 23 Bayview Drive on your own.
We're good.
Thank you very much, yes.
Yep. All right.
Good.
Good night, guys.
Thank you as well. Leah had to run out, so we're gonna talk about 23 Bayview.
On baby weekend, if not, we can wait.
I'm
Oh,
not
wait.
signing it. I don't think it was an emergency.
Oh, pass it on, please.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounded like it last time it came in front of us, but no, I don't really know.
No, it's not.
You would make it. I'm going to sign it.
Mr. Chairman, should I just wait, or?
Yeah, let's just wait a minute. Leah will be right back.
All right.
Shall I just assume that
Yeah, I'm not gonna sign it.
she's not signing?
Should I sign it?
No, I don't, no.
You may be right.
Those always gotta go back.
Oh, yeah, I'm hanging on to them.
Yeah, we need to get those in. That's all our work.
Hands here too.
Am I the last one on the agenda?
Yes,
in the pre-dawn hours?
almost, right?
Yeah.
Not too bad.
I believe our last update is related to 23 Bayview Drive.
Correct.
All right, so can you just state your name and address for the record?
Sure, I'm Sujat Suptankar. I live at 13 Morningside Drive in Shrewsbury. And with my wife, I believe she's on the phone as well, listening in. We own 23 Bayview Drive. Just as a brief reminder to the committee, right, we got the order of conditions last year. And as part of that condition, we did, our intent is to follow everything that is laid out there, right? So we want to make it the property, like I stated, that it wasn't when we took over that particular lot. So we got this, hopefully today, I can help resolve the different elements of that violation letter and maybe give clarity where clarity is required. I did speak to Ilya briefly, actually very quickly after I received that note from her about the violation, just to make sure we are on the same page on what needs to be done to correct this, because our intent is to correct whatever is needed. But I thought it would be a good place to start would be to get in front of the commission and explain what has been done, so and why it was done.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense? And can you hear me okay?
Well, kind of makes sense. Let's see what, Aaliyah, would you like to make some comments, Aaliyah, or would we want to hear from the board?
I'm happy to just kind of go over what I observed on the property, and then we can kind of get into why the applicant did that and any questions the board may have.
Right.
So an order or a letter of violation, a notification of violation letter was released on early in June, after it was observed that I observed a structure, we'll call it, within that 15-foot buffer. We had issued an order of conditions to remove all structures on the lowest level of the property. That at the time had included a incredibly dilapidated shed and like a workbench that was in front of the retaining walls at the lower level. So that had been part of the order of conditions that was released last year. It was observed that there was a structure of some kind at that lowest level on the property. And then the second violation within the order was that just the DEP file number that was posted on the at the roadside for the property was incorrect. That was easily fixed. Just have to get new letters at a big box store to pop on there. But then the structure obviously was the bigger dilemma. So I think the applicant can speak more to what happened to get the structure there.
No, so a couple of clarifications. The two things that we indicated we would remove, we did remove, which was the shed, and there was this bench-like structure on the other side, right? And those structures, they were all removed, so all that was remaining was that wall. But as you can imagine, when you take out a really old structure, what it reveals is just this bad-looking aesthetic, right? Just wood there and stuff like that. And we're like, okay, what do we do with something like this without disturbing the ground that we are on? So the solution was, rightly or wrongly, and just speaking, seeing how these hearings are going, I should have maybe just consulted with Ilya before doing it. But here we are, right? So what has been done there, and there are a couple of other pictures that show what it is. It looks like a huge structure, but really there is an existing wall there. All those walls existed. What you're seeing is actually 2x4s added and just a veneer added to just hide it. It's not a structure. In fact, even the bottom row that you see of that structure does not even touch the ground. It's literally a facade, and you're welcome to come see it. Because once you see it, I also included some pictures of when it was being built. That shows, I don't know if those can be brought up earlier, that show the construction of it. Literally, we used the existing wall, put 2x2s, and just created a faceplate on the existing structure. So there's no cement, there's nothing else. It's literally a facade to an existing structure. We thought it met the intent of not disturbing the area while giving it an aesthetic lift. This actually kind of it's hard to take, this is one after picture, just kind of highlights the veneer effects of it. This is the front, and you can see it's not even touching the ground. This is a side view. These are the side views that just show how we created the veneer in front of the existing wall. So all it was to give it a veneer, not to create a new structure. It was to maintain that using the current structure, use 2x2s, use prefab wood, and just put it back on. We can remove it, but my recommendation to the committee is to see if we can keep it, because it does.
Okay, we understand what you're saying, but I mean, in your filing, it said that there'd be no work done within the 15 or the 30 from what was discussed at our hearings, other than removing what was there that was no longer needed. And there was no structures, there was no stairs to be replaced, there was none of that.
Yeah.
And then here we are now discussing stairs, railings, the structure. I mean, it's more than a veneer. It's because a veneer would just be some wood attached to the existing wall. This is a structure with a box of some sort on it. That's just my take.
Yeah, it's as much an alteration to the existing structure as adding an addition to a house is. It's the same principle, basically. We didn't approve any changes to the wall. And it looks like this is pressure-treated wood, which I have an issue with as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for look, I mean, it's easy enough to take off. My thinking along this was not to go against an order or anything like that. It was to really create a veneer. There is nothing structural to it.
I agree there's nothing structural to it.
Yeah.
But it's still work done within the buffer, and it was work that wasn't approved.
Okay. And so I would look for feedback, what can I do in a situation like this?
We're gonna give you some. Bob, what do you have to say?
Okay, I did go down there today and look at that. All the work that was done that wasn't supposed to be done. That is definitely a structure's been built onto that. It's all new, pressure-treated wood, 4x4s. You put almost like a seating area down there where it sticks out. Looking up the side of it where you replaced the stairs, which you weren't supposed to touch, those banking on the side of it's all collapsing in, it's all washing down on both sides of that. You put in railings and more pressure-treated wood. At the bottom, you put in a cement pad that was never there, and you put a whole new pad there at the bottom, of all which was not within your conditions. It was, when you were asked point blank if you were going to touch anything, and you said no. Nothing would be touched. It was going to be originally the way it was, and that's not what happened. Even at the top of the stairs, within the buffer zone, you put, the 100-foot buffer zone, you put in two walls on either side of the steps that weren't there before, brand new cement walls, like part of your foundation. So that's all stuff that was not supposed to be touched. And I went through it, I took pictures today, and I actually looked at everything. So that's what I have to say. It's something that was not supposed to be done.
Okay, Diane?
Yeah, and that does look like pressure-treated wood, which means that there are chemicals in that wood that are not supposed to go into the water.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. I
And,
thought I was doing the right thing.
and Emily?
So,
Hold on, we're going right through everybody, then we'll give you some more.
yep.
Well, if there's an open order, I guess I'm wondering how we remedy this, because it's nowhere near what was approved. It wouldn't be issued a certificate of compliance. So I guess
And so a big part of this order had been kind of restoring there's that lower level, which is obviously all within the 15-foot buffer, to kind of a more native, obviously the shed that was down there and the workbench were either not permitted in, many owners ago. And historically, our lakefront is very well developed. But we wanted to kind of, return that space to a more natural setting. So it might be, a remedy to this might be to remove that veneer and then restore that lower level to either native vegetation or an approved seed mix that would be native vegetation, that might be a grass mix that could be mowed but would still be native. Or if you guys wanted to see something, the slopes are supposed to be covered in a native shrub mix with a phlox mixed in. So the more slopier bits should be remedied and under the approved order. Hopefully we will still see that happening, but we might want to add that the lower level, I'll have to look to see what conditions specifically applied to that first, that really low level, because I think it mostly specified the removal of that shed and
Yeah, it was
no touching the lower level.
Like the one thing,
Yeah.
even the banking coming down is all been disturbed. You've dug that banking going on down. It's all loose dirt on there going down to, if you look from the back, look up from the lake on the right side, that's all loose dirt there that's been moved around and excavated. It looked like you went and dug stuff out of there.
No, we haven't touched any of the slopes yet.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the idea is to put the trail mix, put the 3 bushes, I forget the lowberry blue bush and, whatever we had said for the planting, we are going to carry through. There was a patio just like there was before. So nothing over there is touched. The stairs themselves, the issue that we had was the previous owner, the way the stairs were just plastered, but they were decaying. And literally they were crumbling. Which was like, okay, we stayed the current width and just made sure they were safe.
We understand that. You should have come back to us. I mean, you've been through
Got
the
it.
process and you understood what the conditions were. They were clearly written. So maybe going forward, we can discuss this with the board and Aaliyah. You, at a minimum, probably remove that veneer pressure treated wood that you attach to that wall. Stabilize the slope with some native seed mix and some flocculent.
Yeah, I would recommend that planting get done sooner
Now.
than later so that you can get that area stabilized, because any certificate of
Got it.
compliance that would be issued for the permit in the future would require that all of those slopes are stabilized. So you want to have time for those to grow in and take hold. So yeah, I would recommend getting those planted,
Immediately.
as soon as possible.
And I also like to
Yeah,
see
we'll
that
do-
cement
we'll
pad at the
do that.
bottom taken out, the one, the new pad is poured right down to the dirt, have that removed.
Okay, yeah, the bottom pad be removed.
There was a bottom pad, however, in the original plan.
Let me look.
So
Tell them
it's,
it's new concrete.
Brand new, I looked at it, it's all brand new.
I'm sorry?
I said that's a brand new pad, that was not there. I'm looking at the old pictures right now from, there was not that pad, it's a brand new pad, it's sitting right at the bottom.
Yeah,
It's four, you
yeah,
can still see the floor
I
marks
thought
on
we
it.
kept the same width on the pad also, but, look, we'll correct whatever, the trail mix we are doing, we're stabilizing the slopes. We'll try to move that up in the schedule. The veneer, we can remove that, right?
Okay.
Is there anything else we need? The pad, you said you need to remove that area?
Yeah, the pad at the lower level,
Hand tools.
We'll,
should be removed.
yeah, so we're gonna send you a letter.
Yes, yeah, I'll send a letter with, the requested, remedy,
Okay.
list.
And it should be done as soon as possible, and especially the seeding. So, I mean, you wanna
Yeah.
get stuff growing on that slope, so it doesn't go into the lake, okay?
Got it.
If the seed has trouble growing because we're going into summer now and it's kind of late to start some seeds, a lot of seeds, seed it anyway and then seed it again in the fall.
So I think for this order, we had seen in the past that just requiring a seed mix resulted in very, very small species or low turnout. So we may have required that plugs in addition to a seed
Plugs
mix
will
be
grow
put down.
better, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll have to go back to the order to see what was required from that, but we could, you may want to consider installing actual pre-grown shrubs so that you have like instant stabilization more than a seed mix would provide.
Yeah, so we had, I forget how many, we had I'm saying the shrub names all wrong, but.
Oh, yes,
the
let me pull that up.
Blueberries and the 29 or so shrubs.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
My guess is we start planting them now, right, to
Yeah.
start stabilizing. Add the 1 pound or something of the New England trail mix, right, because that was the next on those slopes. As well as, should we put that at the bottom as well, that bottom area?
Yeah, I would recommend seeding that area with native shrubs or that native seed mix that was proposed on
Native
the
seed
slopes.
mix.
Because
Okay.
that will stabilize it very quickly, and it will, the shrubs too will help to cover the concerns that you had about the retaining wall being less aesthetically pleasing. The shrubs should help to cover that. You could also look to put those shrubs or taller shrubs kind of up against that retaining wall, just so that you do kind of have an instant aesthetic. Yeah.
Do you mean a row of shrubs at the bottom?
Yeah, it would be a possibility just to, I would recommend a row of native shrubs, because then you'd have something aesthetically pleasing in front of that wall, and then it
Got
would
it.
kind of help to hold
Got it.
that slope as well from the base.
Yeah, because that wall is really, really old.
Yeah.
It's, it was not a maintained piece of land.
Yeah, I would just recommend, if you are going to install, I would not install those shrubs right up against it, because if you either do have to do work on that wall in the future, if it does fail for some reason, which obviously everything is apt to fail at some point in time, you want to have space that you either don't destroy that wall, or you're not, if you are having to put money into purchasing and installing those shrubs, you don't want to immediately lose them because your wall falls right on top of them.
Got it.
So I would recommend putting them a couple feet forward so they have room to grow and room to not knock your wall over.
Got it. No, I think these are doable in short amount of time.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the commission giving it due consideration, right? And first time home builder, so pardon any mistakes, right? It's not out of ill intent.
Yeah. And then were you able to remedy the DEP file number at the site already?
Tim has it at the printer right now. That's the message I got from Tim. I'm like, hey, I need the sign.
Yeah,
updated.
it's gotta go up.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'll make sure it goes up.
perfect,
So-
okay.
All right, Aaliyah will send you a letter with all our requirements, and then you just attend to them as soon as you can, okay?
Okay, will do.
We
Thank you
may
very much.
want to hear from you again in July. We may want to do a check-in in July just to see what kind of progress you're
Yeah.
making, okay? Awesome.
And what I'll do is I'll send pictures immediately once we have done it.
Sounds good.
So,
Awesome.
All right.
Okey
Thank
dokey.
you.
Have a great night.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
So, Ann, did you have something you'd like to speak about?
Ann Zedek's under 99 North Pennsylvania Ave. No, I just attended in case there was a brief update that you might have, Leah, about our meeting that was held earlier this month.
Oh, yes, it's,
So,
not an agenda
and
item,
what
so I guess I won't
activities
speak to it.
took place.
Yeah, so we met with the building department on site at 101 North Quinsigamond Avenue, just to see what the progress of the site was. They are going to require several building permits because they're reconstructing those retaining walls. And there was kind of some confusion about, that I think we remedied, hopefully, about the retaining wall closest to the water and whether or not it would need a building permit. And that it be constructed this time so that it doesn't keep, so it seems like historically it would be engineered very well to be constructed. But then when came time for construction, it was not built to plan just ever. So it's gone through several permitting processes, and it's obviously a tedious process every single time because the wall keeps falling over. So we met with their engineers on site, their surveyor on site, and then and the building inspector to kind of go over how we can make sure that this one is constructed to stick. It may require that they come before us for an amendment to the order, because it may require that the wall is, they had planned to just kind of restack the blocks and install the fabric, the fabric to hold the wall in place. And they were not, so far they have not installed it with the fabric in place. So they were going to see if that was a feasible option, because that was what was approved under the previous order, or if they needed to kind of like deconstruct the entire wall, figure out what was going on, and put it back the proper way. That would require additional permitting, because they would need to install a boatload more erosion control. But we are kind of repeatedly, continuously going to hang out with them just to make sure that it's happening.
In driving by there the other day, I noticed that they were unloading some blocks. Have they started any work there, Ann?
The blocks that you saw were not for the waterfront wall. Those would be the ones for the ones that are along our property line. They have not, they don't have permits yet for that part of the work.
They needed to kind of establish a more concrete idea of what the limit of work was, because there are retaining walls throughout the entire side yard. So trying to figure out what needed to be replaced now, because tearing up the entire side yard was not feasible at this.
Did they have a plan on fixing between Ann's wall and the wall there, that big gap? Make sure it's all walked together, support the wall?
Yes, the engineer was gonna go through and kind of figure out a better idea of what needed to go there. Cause I think what we had approved was, some large stones between there so that it would prevent the water from going in. And the engineer wasn't sure if that would be what made the most sense at this stage.
Right. Is there, anything else?
Yes, I did want to go over, I was not able, I forgot to cover this last month.
Okay.
And I'm unsure how to cover correspondence. We don't typically do that, but we received a letter from Miss Hillary King. She lives within the town, and she had concerns about, I guess this is just something, it's just food for thought for the future. But she had concerns about a lot of the wetlands that grow between Patton and Sherwood. Between those schools, there's a lot of really beautiful resource areas that a lot of the children that go to those schools can appreciate, but they are pretty inundated with a lot of invasive species. So we may just want to consider in the future projects that aim to.
Like a CPC project or something?
Yeah, a CPC project might be really, really cool to see. I don't know if you've ever driven down Municipal Drive, but I drive down every day and look at the beautiful patch of ginormous patch of knotweed. Right after
The soccer field?
Yeah, right next to the soccer field. And then, of course, the large wetland on the other side of the school, right next to the school. So it would just be a consideration.
So who would propose that project?
Typically, CPC projects are held by a town resident and a department within the town. So we could look to be the town department for the project. And then, yeah, just figuring out who would want to be the resident stakeholder of that project.
So knotweed seems extremely expensive to remove, just based on the
Absolutely,
labor.
yeah.
Some of those are
I
fairly
think
easy.
the reticence to deal with knotweed for any aspect in any part of the town, has been the truly despicable process of trying to get rid of it. She is so strong. She will stick around. A lot of the times, only chemical treatment is what works. Like, you can't just mow it and call it a day. You can't smother it. You can't set it on fire. You need to throw everything you have at it for several years in a row, which is obviously an incredibly labor-intensive and expensive process to undergo.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is maybe you triage some of the projects where you start with some of the smaller projects that maybe take up more area that are
Yeah.
cheaper to remove, like skunk cabbage and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Or just slightly less aggressive invasives. I know garlic mustard is a common one that I've seen kind of nearish some of the trails and native species in Shrewsbury. And then obviously bittersweet is always, that one's
Bittersweet.
additionally labor intensive, but a slightly less aggressive
Right.
species than not.
Yeah, but any root that's left will simply grow again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is it.
All right. Anything else to come before the board, commission? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.